Hey everyone, how's everyone doing tonight? Welcome once again to our DM Inspiration stream, and we are holding our talk show again tonight. So, if you have just joined us, good to have you with us tonight. Jazion and I will be talking about characters.
Yes, which many people don't have.
It's a rather unfortunate situation. So, I mean,
Well, I think at this point we're just kind of just waiting for
Mhm.
viewers to jump on, so
Yeah,
let's not
more or
go
less.
straight into that.
Mhm.
Yeah, don't jump the gun.
Oh, definitely not. But people do that a lot with their characters, don't they?
I I guess that's because most people aren't used to actually collaborating when they storytell.
That's very true. I mean, it's an unfortunate issue, I would say, with the way that um, people just don't get a chance to sit around, especially in Adventurers League. They don't get a chance to sit around and build rapport with their characters and create some kind of links and connections among themselves before the story begins.
I mean, you can totally get around that just by planning ahead of time, but I think most people kind of just go, this is my character, this is what my character is like, this is what my character does, and that's all. They just stop straight there,
Mhm.
right?
I mean, definitely would like to see more characters interacting, characters revealing, important tidbits about their life stories at the table, right? Because that's also important information for us as dungeon masters. It's great for us to help us to tell a better story as well and to create important moments with characters.
I think you're definitely expecting too much of players.
You think so?
I think you are. Like, we've gone through this before, right? So back when we were starting out in D&D, and you dragged me to 5th edition, thank you for that.
Mhm.
I was used to storytelling, so I
That,
can
that was
write.
that was a benefit. That was
Yeah.
a great benefit.
I can write, but the problem is that I didn't always know how to write
Mhm.
for a story that other people could interfere in.
Uh-huh.
And we ran into the same issue as well, I think, when people came into our games and were trying to roleplay. They assumed how a character would react. They started writing my character into their story without,
Which is a big no-no, and
which is a huge no.
yeah, it's definitely very, very
And they didn't
disrespectful.
consult with me or ask how my characters would react and what they did. So that's something that I think you need to think about as well when you're writing for D&D.
Oh, for sure. And then definitely, I mean, the difference is that for us, if we're writing NPCs, it's pretty straightforward, right? We just need to know that NPCs exist, they live in this world, they can interact with the world, they have dreams, they have hopes, they have wants.
More than most player characters, to be honest.
Well, that's probably because the player characters have a hard time integrating into the world because a lot of them don't understand how the world
Well, a
works.
lot of people create their characters in a vacuum, right? So,
Yeah.
like with Dungeon Masters, you don't have a choice because you need to know the
You need to
world.
know every aspect of the story.
Yeah, and even if you don't know, you can make something up and change the world so that it supports that story.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And that's the benefit of DM
Yeah.
empowerment, yeah. But with players, I think that the challenge has always been trying to figure out, hey, Tiger Paws, good to have you with us. Welcome.
Oh,
First time you join us, I guess, for the stream. So I hope that this is beneficial to you as well. I think do you play a lot of D&D? So if you do, and if you're looking at ways to beef up your characters and your stories, and I hope that today's chat is going to be helpful.
I mean, just a short introduction. We've been playing D&D for quite a few years.
Quite a
Quentin
few
has been
years.
playing for way longer than I have, but we know this because he's old.
Yes, that's unfortunate,
Yes.
but yes. And I mean, both of us started playing fifth edition around the same time. I would say, like
I got
2016,
dragged into it after.
2016, about there. Yeah.
You were playing for like a couple of years, maybe 1.5 years before I started.
No. Yeah,
You
I guess.
were.
I was
And
just
asking to
casually
play, I was
playing
like,
fifth edition.
no, I refuse to play.
Yeah. Well, fifth
But
edition
that's
is
the best impression of some of the players that I saw playing D&D. So
that is true.
because I was used to playing on my private table, and I think it can be really hard to take that step.
I mean, that was
right
our
outside
private
the-
table if you think about it.
No, I mean before we started our private.
When fair enough.
Yeah.
So that's definitely true. I think that if you come from a background where you've been playing with your own playgroup most of the time, uh, characters and interactions tend to be pretty set in stone because you kind of know who you're dealing with at the table. There's a good rapport. There's a good understanding among the players, right? So everyone kind of plays off each other. That's pretty easy. But if you're gonna play in public games, like when we started out, I think we started out playing Adventurers League, and then very swiftly after that, kind of taking over the running of Adventurers League in Singapore. Yeah, so
But like that's the thing, right? So role playing, I would say it's not easy. It's acting,
it's
and
definitely challenging.
when you're writing, like for that in real time, you put a bit of yourself into the character.
That's very true.
So it takes a lot of courage, or just being comfortable with the people that you're playing with, in order for you to actually role play that character at the table.
That's definitely correct.
Yeah, so I can see why people have issues with that.
Yeah, I know for a fact that when I first started playing Adventures League, when I started playing an organized play with at public tables, it was a little hard integrating with the other players because they didn't seem to really be interested in role playing.
Right.
Yeah, they kind of just came down to the table like, hey, I'm gonna play this character. I am Joe the Fighter.
Yeah.
And I wear a chainmail armor. I carry a shield and a spear.
What are you? I'm a paladin. What kind of paladin? Do you work for the church? What order do you stand for?
Yeah,
I'm an oath of devotion paladin.
or you know what? The funniest one well, we have all heard this before. I am Melrose the Druid. I am a druid. I do druid things.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to describe your character?
No.
What was the most memorable table you had? That's gonna be tough. I've run many
So many
tables over the
tables?
years.
Yeah.
I guess the most fun I've had was with a group of completely new players who had absolutely no knowledge, no prior involvement of D&D. And that was fascinating because they were all media practitioners. They all came from advertising, marketing, PR, and they just wanted to have a good time. They just came down one day and said, "Hey, we heard that you do D&D on demand. You're a professional DM," and they just booked a table. And I was like, "Okay, sure, that's great." And they were so natural, and they were so creative. Checkers, yeah, that's totally correct. We just set up our stream currency redemption recently, and we have some fun stuff in there, such as paying some currency to get Jazion to wear a silly
No.
hat.
That's for Crimson. So remember to hydrate.
Yeah, make sure if you want her to wear a hat, you can pay for that. I think was it 3,000 points? Yeah, I think it was 3,000 points. And if you want us to hit anyone with a D20, that's 300 points. We have this big, lovely D20 cushion that we can use, or plushie. Yeah. But yeah, so most memorable table. Totally newbies to D&D, but they were very natural about it. So they played the pre-generated characters. So you know that we have some pre-generated characters that we designed for Adventurers League, and these characters actually have backstories.
Yep.
So
I think it's a lot easier for newbies to get into a game when they have an idea of the characters that can be playing, how they can describe those. So we actually wrote those characters so that they are easy enough to get into the game, but at the same time generic enough that if you really want to, you can put your own spin upon them. And that's fun.
Yeah, so there are role-playing hints. There are some general descriptions of their characters, their dispositions, how they carry themselves, what their attitudes to certain things are. And that's good to have. And all these players, they just jumped on it. One of them played Melrose the Druid, by the way, but they were really good at it. So that was pretty cool. And that was probably the most memorable table I had in recent years, for running Adventurers League in Singapore. Yeah.
I think mine it's pretty well known among our peer groups, I would say. It was back when I first started DMing for the public, so I think that was my third ever game I had ever run in 5th edition, right? And it was for an epic. It was for an epic in tier 3.
Ah, yes, that
Yes.
table. The table.
It's a very memorable table. The stories are still going around.
The table that worshipped for the Jazion.
There was more than one table that did that.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm not gonna go into it right now, but it was really interesting because there was a lot of unexpected roleplay. And as someone that comes from a free-form writing background, having people at the table that could actually bounce off the things I say to them and come up with a really incorrect reaction to that was really fun. And that's what I tend to look for in D&D.
That's great. That's amazing. Right. So freeform role playing definitely does push out quite a bit of expertise when it comes to telling stories.
Definitely. And I think that there's a lot of etiquette in freeform roleplay that a lot of D&D players stand to learn from.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think.
Like, not assuming how someone else is going to react to you.
Or the way that they write the characters, right? So they have to be very, very, I guess, respectful.
You need to write things in a way that leaves someone's action open to interpretation, gives them a chance to respond to you.
Mm-hmm. Who's
so
that?
writing as an invitation is really important.
For sure. Who's that person behind me? So that's actually a mannequin with my suit of plate armor.
Everyone asks that.
Yeah, so that's my armor from Heroes of the Storm. It's a skin for Arthas the Lich King from World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a competition costume I wore when I used to be a cosplayer.
You should pick up Frostmourne.
Yeah, Fulmorin. Yeah, there we go. And this is the sword. This is the skinned over version of the Frostmourne greatsword. So yeah. No, I did not win the competition, but I did get some prize from that competition. It was a fairly casual competition, I think, and I didn't really care much for it. It was just mostly to hang out with friends, and I think this was one of the last few costumes I made before I stopped cosplaying.
And in fact, I think you almost gave up on this costume. You couldn't finish it until I was like, did you know your dragon skills could be laser cut?
Yes, and laser cutting was a lifesaver. So technology. Yeah, so building the scale armor underneath the plate was a bit of a challenge, and that's something that and if it's such a challenge making it as a costume, imagine an actual smith in a fantasy world, hammering out the skills one at a time. Wow, that's gonna be super complicated.
Die cutting is great.
Yeah, die cutting is great. I guess if it were in the D&D world, you might have smiths that use magic. So, yeah, battlesmiths, magesmiths, artificers, forge clerics. Yeah, so that's not too bad. So there's some advantage to that. So that's really beneficial for that.
Oof.
Oh dear, what happened?
And I think you're getting a little bit softer. You're kind of like talking to yourself and not projecting towards the mic.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
So I think that one of our lamps got affected by our.
Yes, now like Jason has his own lens flare.
Yeah,
so it's
lens
pointing
flare.
straight at the webcam.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, let me just try to figure out if I can fix this. Oh,
This
and
is
your
why-
camera's
this is why I warned
frozen?
you
Oh
earlier.
no! Your camera's frozen. Let me see if I can fix that. Wow. That's really weird.
Yep.
Dear, let me see if I can get this right out.
Told ya.
Yep, looks like we have a bit of a problem with the camera. There we go. Okay, she's unfrozen now. Welcome back. You're alive again.
Oh.
You have made your saving throw at the end of the turn. You're no longer stuck.
Is it a con save, a dexterity save, an intelligence save? Or...
I don't know. I mean, you generally have good stats in all of those. It could be anything.
Except for con.
Except for con.
Yeah.
I think not. I think your con is pretty alright.
No, I just have higher wisdom, so I know how to take care of myself better than.
Hey Balinar, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Hello, better than
Oh,
Okay.
Brenda. Sneak attack?
sneak attack.
No! Yikes.
Okay. One sneak attack.
There we go.
There we go.
So Balinar is that Nick from was it Dota? Balinar was also the name of
Night
a
Stalker?
yeah. Balinar was also the name of one of the dreadlords in World of Warcraft. So
Yes.
okay, well done. Very
Just
cool.
Dota things.
Just Dota things, yeah. Oh, it looks like your camera might be frozen again. Something's really odd with your camera today. My goodness.
I blame the sneak attack.
Was it the sneak attack?
It was probably the sneak attack.
Totally the sneak attack, you think so? Let me see if we get it working. There we go. Wow. Yeah, okay, so you're back again. Wow, your camera keeps freezing today. I think it's some like some technical issues with that, but we'll definitely get it fixed. But anyway, yeah, where were we? We were talking about freeform.
Was I gonna bonk you in the head again?
No, you were not.
Oh, okay.
No one,
Just checking.
no one's
Just
redeemed
checking.
any more points, so we're okay. We're
Not
safe.
yet. Safe.
But if anyone wants to redeem some, oh wait a minute. Oh, yikes! What the hell?
Alright.
Not so much a sneak attack. Okay, so
But if you're the dungeon master, I have to declare my sneak attack before I can.
Yes,
bonk
you totally do.
right? Yes. Makes sense.
you have to declare your sneak attack on hit. 5.8k remaining. Do you want her to wear a funny hat?
No.
Yes, you totally want her to wear a funny hat. Come on.
I do. There are no bunny hats to be found.
We definitely have a bunny hat somewhere. We have a
No.
bunny hat on the table. It's not too far
It's
away.
not a bunny hat. Also, no.
It's a Dodoko hat.
No.
Yes.
It's not a Dodoko hat.
It totally
It's
is.
not.
Okay, it's a Jumpty Dumpty hat.
No, you took the wrong hat. You dumbass. The Dodoko hat is over at the other end.
Okay, I guess Mage Hand's not gonna work. Okay, so it looks like you're totally gonna have to wear a hat.
Oh no, Momento. Alright. It's not. I told you it's not the Dodoko hat.
Okay, you don't have a Dodoko hat today. What do you have?
It's the.
It-
It's Hu Tao's ghost.
It's Hu Tao's ghost hat. There we
Hu
go.
Tao.
Okay, so it's a ghost hat.
Yes.
Okay,
It goes, oh.
very fitting
Ooh.
expression. Yes, it totally suits her, doesn't it?
Just
And with the
I can't believe I'm wearing this with like headphones on.
with the headphones on, it looks like the hands are, moving forward and like. Okay. Yeah.
It is. He goes, why am I being sneak attacked?
Totally not a sneak attack. Anyway,
And that's the face he gets when he walks into a tree and he goes, oh no, where did this tree come from? Why did it sneak attack me? When you walk into it, dumbass.
now that's a problem with low perception.
Stop using your phone when you walk.
So if you use your phone when you walk, you have disadvantage on perception checks. Agree? Disagree? Totally agree, right?
It depends on how you use your phone.
That is absolutely true. If you
I
were
like
using,
to glance down at my phone and keep walking like a normal person.
instead of reading a light novel like I normally do.
I do that too. I just don't walk into trees.
So I guess you have better situational awareness and you have a higher wisdom score then.
That's not hard.
Yes, I guess so.
It
Considering
really
that
hard.
Yeah. Well, in any case, so now that we have a good number of people on air with us,
I see a lot of familiar faces. Hi.
yeah, see quite a few familiar
Say hi in
faces.
chat, please.
Yeah, so if you're here with us, please feel free to to say hi. And I see that we have some rare spawns as well. In fact, I see that we have quite a few people that don't normally show up on stream with us.
Let them look.
So that's great. If you have any questions for us, don't forget to just share with us in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I think we should just it's about 20 minutes in. We have a healthy number of friends on air now. Shall we just start? Shall we start talking about backstories? More seriously.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I actually don't like talking about backstories when you talk about characters because I find that too many people, when they're making the characters are boiled down to just a stat block and a backstory and appearance. And that's not how I approach making characters.
I mean, one of the challenges that I've seen as well is that I've seen a lot of first level characters with incredibly long backstories.
And that's perfectly fine.
Where they're
even
dragon
if
slayers, god slayers, demon slayers.
Yeah, and then they die and get reincarnated and start from level 1 again. I mean, that's fine.
And it's
Like,
great.
Actually, like more often when I talk about like backstories,
Uh-huh.
I hear people going, "Oh, okay, my character was like a mercenary who had a very whose wife died, so he's now adventuring. I'm like, why? What? How?
That's totally valid. I mean,
Like why?
if we're just to look at it like the 5 Ws and 1 H, right? That's a pretty good way of putting a backstory together as well.
I mean, okay. So, like, for a character's backstory, I would say it definitely falls into multiple parts, right? So, some of the backstory should explain why you are who you are,
Totally
right?
legit, yeah.
About your past, what shaped you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the backstory should inform the world of your motivations.
Mm-hmm.
What made you want to go adventuring? And second, and my third rather, you should also have a part in your backstory about your adventuring career.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
what kind of adventuring experiences have you had? What kind of adventurer are you?
That's really
You're not just
important.
an adventurer.
Exactly.
We are an Adventurers League, but yeah, okay, but what do you do as an adventurer?
You're the sum of your training. You're the sum of your past. Who was your trainer? Who taught you how to the ropes of whatever you're doing? Like who taught you magic, or who taught you how to be a rogue, or who taught you how to swing a sword, right?
Yeah.
Even things like
What goals does adventuring?
yeah, goals and motivations. These are very
That's
important.
so important, and most of the time I just go,
Mhm.
all right, why is character adventuring? Oh, because I want to gain experience about the world.
Oh my goodness, we hear that a lot, and
What kind of experience?
yeah,
Like-
is it like
What are you looking for?
what kind of real world experience are you looking for? Are you a sheltered person who came from this isolated island in the middle of nowhere?
Imagine that your character sheet is your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's a very good way
Yeah.
of looking at it.
so it's an application to play a game, and if your character sheet doesn't say why you want to join the company, then
Then you're in trouble.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when you're hiring for interns, and the intern goes, I think that what you do is really fun. I want to join your company.
Oh, we've heard that a lot too.
We have,
Yeah. so,
right? And
so that totally
I
happens.
want to see more than that.
I mean, definitely show me what you can do, and show me what you can do for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for. Hey, Alex. Good day to you too.
Hello, Alex. Glad you can make it this time. If you weren't busy watching food streams.
Yeah, and Brenda just said she's created Audrey Hall. Great old one patron, the fool. Okay. Do you have a pet? It's not Audrey Hall if you don't have a golden retriever to go with.
With the glasses.
Yes, with glasses.
It has to have the
How
glasses.
how cool is that?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it actually brings me to something else as
Mhm.
well. That so most of the time, if you are new to D&D,
Yeah.
new to writing,
Mhm.
the characters that you create tend to be copying what you enjoy.
Or they tend to be influenced to some extent
Yeah.
by the kind of literature or the kind of anime or the
But
kind
most
of
of the time,
games.
it's straight up copies, right?
Yeah. They call it XPs, don't they?
Well, yes and no, but it really depends on how it's done. Some people straight up copy better than XP.
That is true. I mean, when we first started Adventurers League, I recall a lot of players coming to us for games, and practically everyone was Kirito from Sword Art Online.
Yes. And that's also Naruto.
Mhm.
And if you've ever lived through that era of doing online role-playing games,
Oh my
everyone is
goodness.
Ichigo, everyone is Naruto,
Ichigo, Naruto.
everyone is Kakashi. Like, wow, I'm so cool.
Yeah.
I'm doing one eye. I'm like, dude,
So,
how
oh my
is it
goodness. That one fox boy, Inuyasha.
everyone is a fox boy.
Was it Inuyasha?
He's not a fox boy.
Inuyasha was a dog boy. Kind of.
It's almost like calling himself Inu means dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anime characters. I know that when League of Legends was incredibly popular, and it's popular again.
God.
Uh, the number of
Everyone was Jinx.
everyone was Jinx, everyone
everyone
was
was Jinx.
Ari,
Everyone was Miss Fortune.
and Miss Fortune. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't even know her first name.
What's her first name?
Miss.
Clearly? Because most of them missed the mark.
I mean,
Uh-huh.
just so you know, her first name is Sarah. See, and you will know this if you actually played the Ruined King. It's a pretty decent RPG.
I mean, like, besides that, I think that a lot of people copy these characters or play these characters because they enjoy the experience or they are fans of these characters and kind of want to see those characters in another world,
Okay.
which is totally fine.
Oh, hey, Alex just redeemed another hats off.
Okay, so
So-
are you gonna change hats? I think you should change hats, right?
No, I totally think that
No.
Jazion should change hats. Do you want her to change hats? Who do you want to change hats? Okay, so pick one of us and
Pick him.
pick her. It's funnier when she. Oh, definitely Jazion. Okay. Dodoko hat, come on. Or do we have a hat that we haven't shown on stream yet?
Do we have a hat that's not shown?
Yeah, I think we haven't shown the
we do.
cryo slime hat just yet.
Oh my god. Okay. I'll be right back.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, totally worth it. Yeah. So all these Genshin Impact inspired hats are all created by Angela's Italia. So, aha, you know what? All right, so Jazion is coming back with her cryo slime hat. So there we go. And she's got a ginormous cryo slime with her as well. Cryo slime cushion. And
I can use this to bonk Jason. It'll be great.
but
Bonk.
sneak attack.
Ah! Ow! Hey, not fair.
Brenda asked for it.
Mama asked for it.
There we go. You know that cryo slime is gonna actually cause some damage.
Good.
So yeah, so we were just talking about XPs and stuff, and people creating, characters inspired by their favorite characters from video games, anime, manga, whatever have you. Does it prop freeze? I don't know. That depends. Maybe if her screen freezes.
Not on a Dendro slime.
Dendro slime.
If it was a primal slime, he might get set on fire.
Oh, that would be
Should be
awkward.
pretty cute, yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so we're talking about XPs, right? And I was saying that in my experience, most people want to roleplay those XPs because they enjoyed the story
They really like
and they
characters,
want to reenact that story
Mhm.
in the roleplay.
Mhm.
Now, there's this one really big problem here is that most of those characters
Mhm.
can't reenact their stories because the stories that they had were planned out, they were plotted, and they
Yeah.
were entirely different worlds.
In fact, all the arcs were already created. Everything was written down.
Yeah.
And it's not a D&D game. It's very different because D&D games are
Yeah.
more interactive.
Yeah.
And anything that happens at the table is so different. And of course, the dice play a part in it as well.
And it's not just that, like a lot of them enjoy those characters and they want to be as awesome as those characters, right? So they try their best to copy paste which those characters have.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that those characters were created either in other systems or they're just a lot more high level than your
Yeah,
character.
then your character is allowed to be, yeah.
Mhm.
And most of the time, there's this disparity because of that.
Yeah. And I feel that when you focus too much on trying
Mm-hmm.
to create a character in D&D that
Mhm.
comes from somewhere else, you kind of end up forgetting how to adjust it for the world it exists in,
For sure.
and the character becomes very static
Yeah,
or like
not-
one note.
Mhm. Not just the mechanics, but also the way you roleplay the character.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that you should really think about if you're trying to create a character that's inspired by other media.
Alex says, in his opinion, it's more fun to create characters that have some sort of detriment or negative trait. And yeah,
I mean,
it's absolutely
every
true.
character has negative traits.
Yeah,
It's
every-
just how it's roleplayed, right?
It's like obviously your characters cannot be perfect. There's always a strength. There's always a weakness.
Yep.
There's always an opportunity to grow, and there-
Sometimes their strength is a weakness because
Yeah,
they're too
exactly.
strong at one thing that they keep using that to solve everything. But
Mhm.
that isn't always the best choice.
yeah, sometimes it requires a little bit more subtlety or a little more tactful approach to things rather than just going in and swinging your great sword around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like way too many people think that
Mhm.
they are a good role player if the character has a negative trait. That is not true at all.
Yeah, you could have a perfectly well-adjusted, perfectly okay, perfectly fine character who is, incredibly satisfied with their lives and the world, and they came from a good family. Why not?
Yeah, well, sure, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
you can definitely roleplay negative things happening to your
Mhm, mhm.
character, or if they're doing negative things without it being like a key trait of your character.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't be the one thing your character is known for or the one thing that your character does all the time.
Yeah.
Because that's just going to be a little weird for your character.
That's just, a cop out.
Yeah, it just makes your character kind of like, I guess, a very one-dimensional character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically what we're saying is that no matter what character traits you have, no matter how you adjust your character, you need to be thinking about how you can make that a little bit more subtle in games that you're playing, and subtle enough that other people can interact with it. You need to be more open in the way you roleplay your
definitely. And you need to give the other characters a chance or an opportunity for them to interact and play off those things that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing that we don't often see at the Adventurers League table most of the time because
half the time I don't see characters interact in character at all.
Yeah, they seem to be
They don't even know each other's names.
Yeah, they directly interact with the DM and they treat the DM as just the one point of contact during the entire part of the game.
Yeah.
Right? They don't talk to each other. They don't demonstrate any sort of interaction, even though they're supposed to be working together. They're a group of mercenaries or a group of adventurers who are doing a quest or on a task. But if they don't know each other's strengths and weaknesses, they don't interact, they don't talk to each other, they don't share their plans in character, how do they work together? I mean, I guess certain conceits must be expected.
Yeah.
Right? But if everyone at the table is that one.
Like if as players you only interact out of character, something is very wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a very good experience whatsoever.
It's not that it's a good or bad experience. It's just that your experience will be so much more.
Yeah, you could definitely enhance everything if there was some level of interactivity.
Yeah. For example, in combat, you can shout orders to each other, like I'll hold this goblin off. You take down the spellcaster.
Yeah, that which sounds a lot more memorable.
Yeah.
As compared to I go attack this thing you go attack the thing, okay?
Yeah. If you got a table command, do it in character.
Yeah, do it in character.
It
might actually give your character some additional characterization, for want of a better word.
And I mean, if you don't have very telepathic bond or you're not casting message with an action, there is no reason why the enemy shouldn't be able to overhear your play.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're shouting something in common, like if you're yelling for your friends to go attack the spellcaster is going to react. The spellcaster is going to try to, ready a shield spell or something, and
then get faked out because you were actually casting something else insane.
So, tactics, things that work during the game itself. Remember that this interaction can be for your benefit as players. Yeah.
You can roleplay everything in the game. It's whether or not you're going to put that thought into there and you want to make it interesting for everyone else.
And I mean, for those who might be a bit concerned about how their language skills may not be up to scratch, I would say
use simple language.
Yeah, use simple language. Don't worry about it. Be as creative as you need to be, or as I guess straightforward as you need to be as well. Yeah. So whatever works for you. Phantom said, but the character is an edgy loner who stands in the corner of the tavern and doesn't say anything, but has a page worth of edgelord backstory.
I mean, my favorite thing is when you have 5 different edgelords and they're all trying to find the right corner to sit into the character shuffling around the room.
So it's kind of silly, but it does happen a lot. We've seen that a lot. It's like, every other Adventurers League character that we've encountered is the farm boy of destiny with a chip on his shoulder, who's probably a rogue or a hexblade or something.
Or they'll just latch into this one set happening and all of the characters this one set happening.
And it's
but how does that relate to you? How does that affect you?
So goblins massacred your entire village.
Okay.
And you witnessed your sister being dragged screaming away by the goblins.
Oh, that sucks.
And then
you create 5 different characters, all with orphans that were from that one village. Because why? I wrote that village was very sad. It makes you feel emotional. So every character that I have must have a link to that village.
And they're all shades of Goblin Slayer.
Yeah.
Wow. So I think we should drink.
Drink.
Bubble tea.
Please remind us to hydrate. Thank you, Phantom.
But yeah, how would we start writing a character's backstory? I think some of the questions I like to ask myself when I'm creating a character of my own is where the character hails from. I think this is really important if you're familiar with the world, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Where the character hails from has a lot of significance because the area that they're from, the culture that they're from matters a lot.
But I mean, that's gonna fall into the problem of people's characters just being a backstory and traits and whatever, right?
How you dress, how you carry yourself, the kind of linguistic
Those are things that
vocal
you can feel.
tics.
I
These
think
are things that you can add
when
on.
it comes to writing characters, there's one thing that I insist that all my characters must be able to do, and that's I have described the character concept in one sentence.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good start. And in
And the
script
character
writing,
concept isn't just their class or
Uh-huh.
their race.
it's
It's
one
who they
line.
are as a
It's
character.
it's basically 25 words or so, like a blurb to describe
Yeah.
the entirety of that character. Like just now, the above mentioned example of the farm boy of destiny with a chip on their shoulder. That's a character concept. It may not be the best concept. It's one of the most dated, one of the most prevalent concepts that you see everywhere, because the farm boy of destiny is a thing, but it is a concept.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker was a farm boy of destiny.
Absolutely. I mean, you could definitely look at it as, I mean, Funboy or Destiny or whatever, right? But I tried with the character concept, and then I do my research and try and fit that into the world.
Yeah.
Like Phantom says, maybe you don't know the world so well, but if you
Work
have
with your
a
game master.
concept and you have a few like factions
Mhm.
or important characters that fit into your backstory, it's a lot easier to fit that
Oh yeah,
into
definitely,
the overall
definitely.
story.
And in fact, one of the things I really like to ask people to do when they are applying for games that I run, like if I run a hardcover, especially, I like asking them about their past. So things like their childhood, their training. I get them to create an NPC from their childhood or from their early days before they became a full-fledged adventurer, like a mentor character perhaps, or a childhood crush. Whatever it is, these are all little vignettes that can be added to the character to.
Oh, I had a
bolster
childhood
that.
crush, but then they died.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry
I'm
to
very
hear that.
sad. I'm an adventurer now. Oh no, they died.
But what's the purpose of adventuring then? Are you adventuring to raise enough money to revive that childhood crush?
See, and that's the thing. Like that's
That's the
such a great starting motivation,
Yeah,
right?
it
But
is.
I want to see people who just
They have to
past that
build on
motivation because I find that when you have that
Mhm.
starting out, it's a great tool. But way too often, I see people just go, "Oh, my adventuring career is over because I found that my childhood crush actually was a witch who killed herself." Wow.
And that's a
And like,
really
but
really
what else? What
strange
have you
turn to
learned?
the story.
What have you learned from the adventures that you've been in?
Yeah.
What about the party members that you've been in?
What about the people that you've connected with? Like, maybe some of the quest givers.
Aha! Hi, Pyroton.
Ah, Piro-chan, how are you?
I see that you have joined us. You should take
Yes.
because you owe us a character sheet or two.
So yeah, so let's take that little story that we just shared, right, about the childhood crush. How would you develop the story? I mean, if they were adventuring to find a way to bring their childhood crush back to life, what kind of paths would they take? I can envision someone like that maybe moving into practicing the divine arts or the arcane arts, yeah, or they could become a treasure seeker. They could be looking for some legendary artifact that could bring people back from the dead if the world does not have a very, common access to magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe if the world was a little less high magic.
Maybe I will write a moment where what you actually really wanted was an answer from your childhood crush about a question that you had asked them.
Oh, like they proposed and it didn't work out.
I mean, that would be stupid, but
But
sure.
that would
Let's
totally
go for
happen.
that campy area.
Yeah, it sounds campy as,
Okay,
as
let's
hell,
go for
and
that.
I think that it's the reason why I said that is that there's a good number of players that we have seen that have done that. That's one of their stories.
Yes.
So, oh hey, on the day that they confessed, an accident happened.
Actually, the childhood crush faked their death and ran away because it was too awkward answering.
Yes, can you imagine if the character tried to tell the childhood crush that they
Maybe
dreamt
a
of her
little
at night?
bit creepy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be incredibly creepy.
very creepy actually. Just a little bit stalkery.
Mm-hmm.
I became an adventurer so that I could confess to you.
Wow.
Okay, goodbye.
Let's not go there.
再见. Yeah. So, maybe a lot of their early life is defined by that, but you are more than just one incident. You're more than just like
Yeah.
one
So
relationship.
growing up, that was a defining incident. That was a catalyzing incident that made them leave their village, right? What about when they have kind of made it as an adventurer? When they hit level 3, when they've gotten a few
Let's go with the most generic
exploits under their belt.
They were a street urchin.
Street urchin, yeah. You know
Okay.
what? Maybe I should just jump into Jamboard and put this down so everyone can see.
Sure.
So here we go. I'm gonna just put this up on Jamboard and I'm gonna just put some stickies. So street
I'm
urchin.
not gonna lie. If you became an adventurer, confess your love, I would just assume that you're really stupid and then avoid you.
How can you give anyone financial security as an adventurer when there's a higher chance of you dying and not coming back?
Yeah, like beyond that, if you assume that being an adventurer is gonna get you love, then I think that there's something else that's wrong with your head.
But that's what the bards think. Remember all those players that played those horny bards that love to seduce every single NPC they see in the street? Being a bard gives them love. That's what they think.
Oh, I think it's just them role playing the idea of actually being liked by people in their life.
Now that's gonna hit a bit close to home for some people, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so street urchin.
Obsessive stalker with murderous streak. So like the Phantom of the Opera.
Uh-huh.
Strahd von Zarovich.
Strahd von Zarovich is definitely an obsessive stalker of a murder street.
That concept, an actual psychopath. That's like most adventurers, right?
Yeah, no, they don't get called murder hobos for no reason, right?
I mean, okay, like that's the thing, right? So when I see adventurers interact with each other, like even when they run into NPCs that have sad stories, comparing stories, and that make them want to help, it's a very surface level. So I will help if it doesn't cost me anything.
But some of the problems come from the modules being very surface level. I mean, I hate to say this, but
The modules are very surface level, but
some
it's down
modules
to the
aren't the
dungeon
best.
master and the players to make something out of that.
so there's this assumption that you're going to be involved in adventure anyway,
Yeah.
so you might as well create some stories out of it, right?
Yeah.
So make something fun out of it, make something that will be appealing to your character.
But that's because a lot of adventures, a lot of dungeon masters run NPC encounters that are in combat as a resource sink.
Yeah, and I've discovered that many dungeon masters don't exactly know how to run those NPCs as well because they're just not sure how to portray them. And that could be because maybe they're not so familiar with how
With how
fantasy
people
societies
talk.
work.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I mean that too.
that too. Yeah, definitely how people talk, how people interact. That's always a challenge if they can't get to the headspace of the characters.
Yeah. And I think that it's not that they've not had the experience of seeing people speak that way, but unless you're actively going out and paying attention to how people act and talk, you won't notice the small things.
I mean, they don't have to be.
People watch, or they when they're
Uh-huh.
watching or consuming media, if they're watching a movie or TV show,
Maybe they're not paying attention
they're
to the
not
right things.
analyzing it.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about word choice, about body language, about everything else.
And these are also things that you as a player, if you're role playing, you should definitely think about. Like there's a difference between someone speaking and saying, "Hearken unto me, I pray thee," as opposed to "Listen to me, you fool." But they both mean the same thing, kind of. Or even things like etiquette, right? Etiquette is really important among nobles and
Walk up to the king. Where did the princess go missing?
yes, I have seen that. It's quite unfortunate.
You need to help us, if not, your kingdom is in danger.
As opposed to saying, "My liege, whither did the princess go?"
Or not actually asking the king directly and speaking to his royal advisors instead, as you would be want to.
It depends on whether the king has
I
said,
mean, generally, if you talk
Yeah.
about feudalistic systems that have a lot of classes,
and there's always
you are not
spokespeople for the
supposed
king.
to
You're
be
not supposed to.
speaking directly to your debtors.
You're not supposed to address the king directly unless he has said, "You may dispense with ceremony."
Okay.
and then it's okay.
Dispense? What do you mean dispense?
That's what happens when the characters aren't good enough, right? You dispense with them.
Where's the ceremony? Let me dispense them for you right now.
Well,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So picking the right kind of words as well when dealing with players sometimes. You put money into the king. I guess some ceremonies get dispensed. Yeah, ceremonies come out.
Where exactly are you putting money into the cake?
I hope you're not stuffing it down the front of their robe because that would be pretty awkward.
Make it rain.
Ah, make it rain.
Then you cast ceremony and the king marries you.
That would be kind of problematic.
Just 2 AC. But yeah, so we're talking about backstories and motivations for characters going adventuring.
Mm-hmm. So
So
we
for
had a street
example,
urchin.
right, street urchin. But instead of being the classic street urchin,
Uh-huh.
maybe you were one that actually fell in with a good family.
Maybe it's quite
Yeah.
possible. So for all we know, this street urchin had actually gone up to a household and said, "Please, sir, may I have an apple?
Show one an apple. No, not apples.
But the apple looks very tasty, sir."
Alright, kid. Come on. Here.
And maybe they got accepted into the family and they were made I guess a manservant or something, which would have been possible.
Or maybe, they found an elderly couple
Mhm.
whose only son had like long moved away.
Or the only son.
And because
married
it was
an
a really
accident.
cold winter,
Yeah,
the street urchin collapsed in the courtyard. Right?
that totally sounds like the start of some of those Chinese wuxia novels.
Yeah. So the old couple took that character in and raised them.
And no one realized that the old couple were like retired adventurers, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say that. Maybe the son used to work for the local nobleman,
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Or they could have just been
and
fairly
the-
well-to-do commoners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the old couple used to work for the nobleman as well, so they had some small connections. And
That's quite-
when
that's
the
quite-
urchin was a
that's
little
quite
bit
true,
older,
yeah.
the
They managed to get him an apprenticeship somewhere.
with the nobles.
Yeah, which is possible.
So they could learn
as a
how
valet
to
or
do
something.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where they met their childhood crush.
Who was the daughter of the noble.
Classic.
Classic, yes.
Easy, right? So
And then of course an accident happened. Which is a catalyzing incident, right? So that's the inciting incident for this character to go adventuring.
Yeah.
And
but I think you should also look at the smaller details in your
Uh-huh.
backstory. So, for example, because this character has been raised by the old couple for so many years,
Uh-huh.
I would say that they are very loyal.
okay, I think that let's put this down. So these are some character traits, right? So loyal. What else? What else do you think is a? What else do you think such a character would do? I would say that this character is probably someone who is.
It's a street urchin in a raised noble house. I'll say they're very perceptive.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Yeah.
they probably also are somewhat eloquent because they have to be able to speak well to get
Maybe
around,
not so much eloquent, but
but fairly.
decent insight.
Yeah, I
Yeah, they can read
suppose
body language,
yeah.
right?
reading mood of others, right? Because as a servant, you are supposed to preempt your masters, so that's possible. What kind of skills would this person have? Do you think? I would say that they're probably quite light on their feet.
Definitely.
Yeah, so they're light on their feet. Maybe quite. I would say that they're probably
They probably learned it in history
quite
as
sharp
because
when
they
it
have like
comes- yeah.
listened in when the nobleman's kids were having their lessons.
listened in
Yeah.
during classes. Yeah, so they'll probably be quite sharp and they'll be able to pick things up quite fast. Yeah, so that's
It's a very classic sense of protagonist.
even though they may not be the best at what they do. I would say that they're probably because they're quite perceptive and they're quite willing to learn. They probably pick things up quite quickly, and that goes into their training.
Yep.
And of course, most of the time when it comes to training for nobles, there tends to be a lot of studies on
A lot about learning
You know,
different languages.
etiquette, languages, how to
Especially
interact
there's a
with
court
foreign
language.
dignitaries.
Yeah.
They might learn a little bit about heraldry, insignias, the history of the local customs, the history of the local lands and all that as
I mean,
well.
if the love interest is a witch, maybe they learn a bit about alchemy.
Alchemy is
Herbalism,
possible,
yeah.
Herbalism is possible. Or those might be little things that noble women are want to do in their free time
Yes,
because
flower arrangement.
totally flower arrangement and totally not sniffing all sorts of weird herbs and unwoods, right?
I mean, it's important that you learn how to protect yourself against poison too. Actually, to you have to
I
identify
suppose,
poisons.
yes.
Yeah.
Or
And in fact, there are some like noble houses that specialize in poison.
that is entirely true.
Yeah.
And if you think a little bit about it as well,
Or maybe there are known doctors in them.
that's quite true. And maybe because
It's a
they
noble
are
family that
also,
got their that saved the king in the past.
so
And
maybe
they're a
they,
family of doctors.
yeah, so that's entirely valid. And because this kid is a valet, they're expected to be able to protect their masters to some degree. So maybe they had a bit of basic swordsmanship training, right?
Some martial skills.
Some bits of fencing training, maybe a little bit of training in how to use a crossbow or something.
Maybe
Because
not a crossbow. Because crossbows tend to be restricted weapons in those times.
they do
Short bow maybe.
Yeah, I guess a short bow might be right. A short
Yeah.
bow might be okay. Though crossbows tend to be used more by the military, and sometimes noble houses tend to arm their guards with that,
Yeah.
or arm their
But
arm their
if they
servants
just
with
know
that.
someone's companion, and maybe not as much.
If it's
Unless they chose to go and learn some more martial skills after leaving towns.
yeah, that's entirely possible. So that's true. That would work pretty well. And if we put all that together, I think we have kind of a good idea how this character is going to turn out, right? And it's entirely possible as well that they're trained in other things, other fields by perhaps the master of the house who perhaps wanted them to be a little bit more experienced in warfare or in protecting the young mistress, right? So that's entirely possible. And that's fairly commonplace in all those Wuxia Xianxia stories too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could work.
Or like every light novel.
Or totally every light novel, right? Like, I mean, I remember some of the Xianxia stories.
It's actually quite common.
Mastery of hidden weapons. Yeah.
Also taking like street urchins and train them to be extremely loyal to the family. It's like shadow guards, right?
Shadow warrior, right? The body doubles. Yeah, they did that for quite a bit of for quite a bit as well. Like it's a common practice.
If you watch Shadow.
Yeah, in Shadow definitely. Yeah, in Shadow they.
Great.
It's definitely a great movie, and I can't stress enough how awesome it is.
Yeah.
If you love movies, if you love Wuxia stories, go watch Shadow. It's great. Yeah, so there we have it. So what class would you place this character? I would say it's
The obvious one's a rogue.
obvious one's definitely a rogue.
Bard actually works too.
A bard kind of works. Yeah, I would actually say fighter. I'm leaning fighter because it's the most.
You know what? The best part is like, you could almost every class here.
Almost every class kind of
works.
fits, right? Yeah, even the paladin kind of fits.
Yeah, both of
devotion.
both crown
Maybe later on.
oath.
Yeah, crown or devotion kind of works too.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, maybe they start out as a
Both the watchers.
level 1. Yeah, a watchers might be
Because see
interesting.
in this is really useful if you're someone's guard.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're trying to protect them and make sure that nothing bad happens to them.
Yeah.
Like invisible assassins.
Uh.
All these invisible characters.
They could easily be a warlock as well.
Yeah, warlock might be
You could have
interesting
made a
fit.
pact with the family in one way or another.
Yeah, especially if the family is an old noble family who has mastered certain arcane secrets,
Yep.
right? So they may pass on those arcane secrets and indoctrinate this young street urchin into the magical arts. And it would work very nicely as well, especially if the mistress was going to be a witch.
Yep.
So this servant may be trained to practice certain arcane arts that require the both of them to work in tandem.
And it'd be great if you could have it be a hex blood as well.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Or perhaps a sorcerer.
Yeah, or maybe the family's ancestor learned the art of healing from a hag.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Or they made a deal with a hag to carry their hag, protect their hex stone or something.
Yeah, that could be the entirety of the whole concept for an arc patron, right? So that works.
Great outfit, please.
Another thing we could think about that, like I said, sorcerer, maybe the urchin had some special bloodline that only manifested after they hit their teenage years. And
Or learn a bit of the arcane arts.
yeah, and the family may have been very interested in securing that bloodline for various reasons.
Mhm.
Perhaps to help them to strengthen their own thinning bloodline.
Yeah.
They met a cow along the way. I don't know.
They
Uh,
met a cow along the way and then
uh,
they killed the cow and had beef. The end.
are there cow-based warlock patrons?
I guess that if you wanted to have a patron, you could have like the divine ox as a patron.
Warlock of the Fiend as well. You could have one of those.
Baphomet as your.
Baphomet, yeah, Baphomet is quite possible. So that's
anyone
viable.
do that?
Yeah. So there we have it. So now we know this is a street urchin character. You don't have to really even think about your class too much,
Yeah.
right? Because
Ranger actually works really well as well.
Ranger really kind of works for this as well.
Even an artificer, in fact.
If they were really good at fiddling with trinkets and all,
Yeah.
especially since they may have to entertain themselves or entertain the mistress by making small toys.
Yeah, making cute little trinkets to play
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
So that's entirely possible. Why not?
I don't see why not. It's actually a great story. So this is what I mean when we say you can create a character backstory
Mhm.
and you don't need to start out with a class in mind for them.
Yeah, so that's definitely correct. You don't really have to worry about the class at all because in the end, the class is a meta construct.
You can absolutely change it around and
Mhm.
adjust it and even adjust the backstory based on that.
Yeah, and especially in Adventurers League where you have lots and lots of respecs. You have lots and lots of ways to change your class and your build and your and every aspect of your character
Mhm.
whenever you level up. Now it's season 11. So it's perfectly okay. So think of interesting ways to, I guess, portray your character rather than slavishly following the whole idea that your character is race, class.
Backstory.
No, not even backstory. Subclass.
Or race class, subclass levels.
Items they carry.
Also,
Their entire inventory in front of them.
yes. You said to introduce your character. Alright, here's my inventory list. This is my class. This is my hair color. That's it.
You see a human fighter. The fighter is wearing chainmail, he carries a shield, and he has a sword in his hand. And this is him walking into the tavern. Why would you have a sword in hand and drawn when you're walking into the tavern? Come on.
She is wearing chainmail under an impractical dress.
Come now. People should be wearing practical dresses rather than impractical dresses when they're going adventuring, right? Can you imagine the dress getting in the way when you're fighting?
Impractical dress over chainmail just means it's gonna catch the chainmail. on
Yeah,
hair.
exactly.
Why? Questions were asked, and they were not answered.
I guess maybe the adventurers yeah, if they were warlocks and mages wearing dresses, no, I would say that some of them will wear robes for sure, but even then, if you were an adventurer, you will probably
And
have
also, they wear robes so that it's easier to cast somatic components.
yeah, so it makes it easier for you to move your
gesture.
hands around and gesture and do like weird,
Somatic
sotong hand dance. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but yeah, I mean, sometimes, even if you're adventuring, you will do things like tying down the loose bits with straps of
Yeah.
leather or whatever. There's a reason why they call it girding your loins.
Yeah, and like the way it's described and the way your character goes about that says a lot about your character.
It's like, are you very
Everything
slipshod?
that
Are you very
you
shabby?
bring your descriptions should tell me something about your character. Be more deliberate about how your character moves. And I know it can be scary doing that and coming up with that like on the fly, so maybe write descriptions ahead of time and maybe just refer to them and read off them.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I would say when I used to do forum role-playing games for D&D, I used to ask people to give me their background, their personality, and I think personality is very important. A description of
What's
their
a
attire,
personality?
something that a lot of characters don't have.
They also forget that personalities and attitudes are different.
And those are incredibly important because that's how you portray the character, right?
Your personality is who you are. Your attitude is what you show in different situations.
And of course, I think that one of the most important things that a lot of players tend to forget is to create a simple description of the character that they can use at the start of every session. Because at the start of every D&D adventure for Adventurers League, typically the DM will tell you to, hey, describe your character, right? And most of the time, it helps a lot if you have that already written down or you have notes put down somewhere. So it becomes a lot easier for you to talk about your character. And you can tailor that to...
I'm a sorcerer, draconic sorcerer.
There's definitely a better way to say that, right?
I'm a level 20 draconic sorcerer.
Why are you seated at my table? This is not
Oh.
a tier 3. This is a tier 3 adventure. It's not tier 4.
Okay. Which table is it?
There are no tier 4 tables today.
Oh, okay. Then I changed my character. I'm a level 16 draconic sorcerer.
Oh dear.
Okay. Should stop making fun of people like that.
It's back to the Melrose Druid again, isn't it? But
What
yeah.
do you look like? I'm a dragon and I wear pink robes.
Well done.
Okay. I am a female.
Is that an afterthought?
Afterthought?
Never
You
mind.
can see.
But yeah, I mean, if you are DMing and you encounter such players, you definitely need to
You
give
know how
them.
it feels like.
You need to give them a bit of help, right? You need to try to help them to figure their character out a little more.
Yeah.
So, how would you describe someone being a draconic sorcerer? The blood of the dragons flows through them, right? So, what kind of physical manifestations do they have scales on their necks of a certain color? Or are the backs of their hands encrusted with gemstones in the shape of scales that reflect the color of the bloodline that they come from?
Do they have reptilian eyes?
Are their eyes a certain color as well? Also very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
That's one of the easiest things to use to describe your character, colors. It goes beyond their race as well. If they're a dragonborn, what kind of dragonborn are they? Are they the sort of dragonborn that look like they come from Dragonlance, where they have actual draconic features, where they have the heads of dragons and tails of dragons? Are they dragonborn from Final Fantasy XIV, who look like
Because they are weeaboos.
weeaboos notwithstanding, the dragonborn from Final Fantasy XIV are actually pretty cool. Are they dragonborn from other games like what was that? I'm trying to recall that. There was another
Skyrim Dragonborn.
there's Skyrim. There's also Breath of Fire, where the blood of dragons flows through their bodies and they can
Right.
actually morph into dragons.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see, right? So having that as part of your description is really critical as well. So characters having that description available when you sit down at a table, it's really helpful. You don't just need to talk about how your character looks like. You need to be able to talk about how your character carries themselves. Like, what do people see when your character walks into the room?
You don't actually need to list what you're wearing to give people an idea of the actual stats, because if they need to, they can ask.
Yeah, you don't have to use mechanical language. In
Yeah.
fact, avoid mechanical language.
Chainmail is fine, but
Chainmail being an actual type of attire is okay, because it describes the armor
yeah.
and
If they're dressed
gives
in
people a good idea.
well-oiled leathers,
Yeah, well, ladders is
good
great.
enough.
Yeah. If you're-
What colors are they wearing?
If you're familiar with fabrics, if you're familiar with materials, you can describe the materials.
What color?
A cloak made of leaves is somewhat different from a cloak made of, cotton, right?
Yeah.
Or a cloak made of well-oiled leather.
Maybe their armor shines with prismatic light.
Yeah, that's a rainbow armor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually sounds much cooler that way.
Robe made of dead goblins. I guess if you could skin the goblins and
Yeah, maybe
and sew
maybe
it
their
up,
robe is made of leather, and
it's
as you take a closer look, you can tell that there are clearly
It's
some
patchwork.
misshapen, stretched faces in there.
yeah, it's a patchwork robe with all the victims of whoever was wearing that, right? Maybe they wore it as a trophy of their
Yeah,
height.
with their eyes like sewn shut.
Yes. And now that would be
But as you
creepy
take
and
a
cool at the
closer
same time.
look at them, you notice that the eyelids are trembling just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a robe of eyes.
It's a robe of many eyes, in fact.
Yes.
And that would be cool flavor for the costume. And it would
Yeah.
be cool flavor for the characters.
Absolutely.
Especially if the character himself has their eyes sewn shut as well.
Yeah. It's also really creepy. And I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so legit for a warlock, let's face it. Right? Or any practitioner of the arcane arts who might have a little
Edge
bit of a
Lord
darker
Necromancer.
bent. Yeah. Edgelord Necromancer, a cleric of death, and stuff like that. That could be interesting. Row of too many eyes. I guess if they were a great old one warlock, so many eyes.
Or maybe it's actually not a spellcaster.
Yeah, it could be totally.
It's a robe.
Or it's a monk. Even better. No one expects a monk to be that creepy, right? Most of the time they think of when they,
Long death monk.
yeah, but most of the time when they think of monk, you know what they think of is Shaolin monk or Avatar: The Last Airbender.
True. Or like Buddhist monks.
Yeah.
And I mean that's quite a boring bit.
Mhm.
But hey, whatever people enjoy, right?
Mhm.
So there are lots of cool ways to describe things, I think, that say a lot about your character. And you don't have to use a lot of language, just have a really clear image in mind of like
Yep.
what you might want to have.
And just describe it. Like even things like how the character has certain tics and certain mannerisms. I think that's really helpful as well. Like, does your character just constantly twirl their hair when they're sitting down thinking?
Or there's a character that has this problem where they sit too long, they'll keep falling asleep with narcolepsy.
Narcolepsy is a problem.
Indeed.
Or perhaps
Maybe
they
there are one of the kids trying to take short rests.
coffee logs, right?
Can I have a short rest?
Yeah, it's definitely the coffee log thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had narcolepsy because of that.
Yeah, that would actually be a really cute way of describing it and hinting at your characters. Like attempts at
No, they're totally not using catnap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be flavorful.
Yeah, it will be thematically appropriate.
And I will allow that coffee log at my table.
Just because it's funny.
Yeah. It's cute.
So yeah. I mean, definitely think about that. Even if the character likes winking in a certain way, or blinking in a certain way, or even if they may speak in a halting manner, or in a very, very slow, monotonous drawl.
Maybe they like winking at people, but when they wink, they blink with both eyes.
And it looks
So
awkward.
it's like
No, that would be an interesting
That'd be
way
really
of
cute,
yeah.
right? So that's way of
They're bad at winking.
That's a bit negative about your character, but
It's a little bit of a trait that
Yeah, but
adds the flavor to the character.
I can guarantee you that people at the table will remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like it's the small things that fill out your character.
Yeah.
Don't
So
need like
Mhm.
big feelings and
yeah, working that
or
in
big benefits.
for your character is great.
Yeah.
So these are really the little things that help to build the character beyond just a stat block, beyond just a character class, beyond describing in exacting detail everything you have in your inventory.
Maybe your character always has a hip flask and they're constantly sipping from the flask.
Yes.
And no one quite knows what's in there because they never share it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you realize there's actually nothing in there. It's just a way for them to cope with a certain trauma they had in the past.
Yeah. Maybe it's actually water and the characters are recovering alcoholic.
Uh-huh.
So they're doing their best to wean themselves off that.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And let's not forget that sometimes certain things just become habits after a while.
Yeah.
Right? Like a certain way you twirl your pen, or a certain way that you crook your fingers when you are sipping from a cup of tea. Right? These are little things that become very natural and ingrained over time. And letting these things into your character and describing them, during downtime activities between your character and other characters can be a really good way of fleshing your character.
And there's something else in there as well.
Uh-huh.
Just because your character isn't saying anything doesn't mean you shouldn't say anything as a player or roleplay your character.
Mm-hmm.
That's super important.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, even body language, things
Even sometimes not choosing to speak says more about your character than anything else.
Oh, that is very true.
Yeah.
So if your character is normally very, very talkative and they get bothered by something, they may just choose to keep quiet.
Right.
Yeah, so that's very normal. Or sometimes if your character just isn't very, comfortable speaking, but you suddenly speak up because something appeals to you or something, challenges your worldview or something is just it's not a good fit for your morals,
Or
right?
you
So
felt
that's something.
compelled to speak. Then
Yeah, you might be.
interesting.
Yeah, you might be forced to speak up because this is something that matters to your character,
Yeah.
and that's perfectly okay.
Maybe when everyone in the party is all huddled up and gathered up, your character has a tendency to stand to the side and look outwards to say. Maybe it's because in the past, when you're all resting on a campfire, your adventuring party got attacked.
Bad stuff.
Yeah, so now you're instinctively on guard.
So you're a
all
little
the
bit
time.
more cautious
And
because
you
of that.
tend to stay in the shadows because you're a gloom stalker. I mean, because
Totally a gloom
you
stalker.
make it
Yeah.
easier to keep on. Keep an eye
It's
on
harder.
members.
It's harder
Yeah.
for people who are trying to get a jump on your party to see you, and that's great. And that may be something that has been honed over the years
Yeah.
because of your one or two bad experiences,
Yeah.
which brings us to describing catalyzing incidents for characters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the most important thing, right? So back on topic, back to our street urchin, who is generally perceptive, who has been serving this noble house, maybe as emergency rations, as test subjects, whatever, right?
Yeah. Wait, emergency rations. Concern.
Well, they might be a necromantic house. Who knows? I mean, witches, right?
Spore druids.
Spore druids, yeah, quite possible. They could be pushing up daisies, but they were fortunate that they were useful.
That's very common with noble houses. Especially
Yeah.
if they draw noble houses.
And one other thing as well to think about is that, in fact, noble houses are exempt from many laws of the land. And because the lives of peasants are generally worthless, they might be doing human experiments.
Yeah. And also keep in mind that if you're staying in a town, generally speaking, you are only under the Lord's protection if you pay taxes.
Yes.
So
So,
if you're a free man, you are allowed to go in and out of town, but
Mhm.
you'll be forced to pay a tax for that.
you have to pay a tithe, or
Yeah.
some sort of toll or a tax or something.
Yeah.
But if you were a peasant,
Out on the
good luck to
road,
you.
the laws will be different. So
Mhm.
this is things you need to keep in mind. How the character operates in the town and out of the town makes a little
Yeah,
difference.
it definitely matters.
But I mean, that's kind of super in depth, so let's just gloss over that for now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you were saying,
So yeah, so how did our street urchin decide to go adventuring? So they have got a bit of training. They're somewhat capable of protecting themselves and their mistress. So how did they end up leaving the noble house that they were supposed to serve? So that's an interesting question now that we can explore. So catalyzing incidents, these are important incidents in your character's past that put them on the road to adventure. So they may have had some basic training. And these may be the sum of their experiences. Like this, most of the time I see people talk about street urchins learning how to pick pockets in the streets, and that's how they're rogues, right? In order to fight and survive in the alleyways, they have to fight in a rough and tumble manner. So that describes how they learned how to sneak attack. Or maybe they had to be able to duck behind shelter or duck into escape, duck into areas to
Patrolling
escape
guards
or
that will
avoid
cover up
patrolling
from
guards,
the-
yeah, to avoid a beating, right? Because whenever you see a street urchin, they may just end up like beating the street urchins or
or
something.
maybe people in the slums to take advantage of the urchins.
Yeah, which is entirely possible.
Yeah.
So they may have to learn how to hide well, may have to learn how to contort their bodies a certain way to be able to crawl into narrow crawl spaces that only street urchins can get into, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, they may have to learn how to pick locks. So they could become a rogue because of that. So these are all the little things in their backstory that help them develop their skills. So these are little things that you can think about. In the case of our street urchin, we already talked about how they had some training because they were brought in as a servant and to also keep the young mistress company. But what happens after that? What incident, what occurs to put them on the road to adventure?
I mean, I can think of the most cliche, light novel style too.
Uh-huh. The house gets excommunicated by the church.
I mean, no, that's the easy one.
That's a very easy one, yeah.
An easier one is that, they were out on an expedition.
They were out on an expedition.
Hunting expedition, maybe also kind of get.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's fair because a lot of noble
hold
families like to host
banks,
this kind of activities, right?
hunting events,
Yeah.
etc. And they were attacked.
What by? That's an interesting question here.
What by? What do you think, guys? What do you think would suit this?
Yeah. What would work for this? Maybe they went into the nearby forest to have the annual hunt.
Tournament grounds.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if you're
quite
talking
possible.
about those hunting events, they tend to be tournaments.
It's usually several noble families
Yeah.
all coming together to have a nice picnic and party and
for them to show off.
yeah, and their
Younger
servants
generation.
are the ones who go hunting together with the younger generation.
Yeah.
So they'll escort the young masters and the young mistresses of the household to go into the forest and to kill game, basically. Yeah.
So if something went wrong, then that's actually a great time for things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe this character had to flee because if not, they'll be.
If not, they may be implicated.
Yes.
That's quite possible.
But I wonder what could attack them.
Well, since it's well beyond the Witchlight season, I'll say Fae. Maybe they trespassed onto a Fae Lord's domain.
That would be pretty cool. Huh?
And they spilled blood in that domain because they were hunting. And the laws of the Fae courts require that
If
spilled
you-
blood be returned in kind.
Yes. So if you take a life, you are required to pay that life.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the young mistress got kidnapped because of that. That would be hilarious. Right? Because that would make sense.
And knowing the Fae, they would fake the death of
Yeah, exactly.
fake her death because they realize that she's actually noble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she'll be whisked away into the Feywild.
Yeah.
And our poor street urchin will be implicated because that stuff happened.
Yeah.
And the poor street urchin will be sent, scurrying away.
Or maybe they were injured and fell into a gully somewhere and only climbed out after the whole thing was over.
Wow,
Very
that
popular.
is totally a wuxia xianxia kind of thing.
I mean, maybe they were knocked out and then rode down the hill.
They rode
wrote
down
a couple of death saves. Wrote a tapey, stabilized, got back up like, hey guys.
And
for
they
that
discovered a
thing."
treasure chest at the bottom of the ravine.
Maybe
And
forget
there was
the
a-
treasure chest. Maybe they have a small keepsake from the beloved. Alright? But maybe it's a signet ring of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are found with that, then something's very wrong.
Then they might get in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's entirely possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe the fact that they trespassed to the Fey domain happened because they were misled by another servant.
Another servant that was loyal to another household. That was
Yes.
planted as a spy.
Yes.
See, and now the plot thickens because there's a lot of intrigue that happens between households, right?
Yeah.
So that's very much a possibility here that they were sabotaged. Or perhaps the servant was planted by the Lord's second wife. Because that would be expected, isn't it? The rivalry between siblings in noble households is very common.
Yeah.
Because only one stands to inherit the estate, while the rest will be either sent to war or sent to serve the clergy.
I mean, it's maybe the first one inherits.
The second one is sent to war, and the third one is sent to the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that totally makes sense. So it might have been an inheritance issue. There might have been a lot of conflict in the background that the young mistress was not aware of, but the urchin was, because the urchin is quite observant.
Or maybe she was already aware of it.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Or
and,
maybe
and use the chance to leave.
to fake her own death
Aha.
to get
no
with
more confession.
with the urchin as an accomplice.
Fair.
And if that had happened, maybe the two of them had tried to flee away from this hunting ground, but bad stuff happened, and the urchin feels responsible because of that.
Fair.
Which is why it sets him on the path to finding a way to redeem himself and restore the noble woman back to life.
Yeah.
Which should totally make sense. And there we have it. This
It's
is
like Sleeping Beauty.
totally Sleeping Beauty, but not. I guess it kind of fits if you think about it.
Man, this could be a light novel.
Yeah, this could totally be a light novel. Yeah.
Yeah. We have read too much light novels.
I guess, or or generally, I guess we're just putting the story together because things just fall into place when you actually talk about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I realize that a lot of players don't give themselves the opportunity to just bounce ideas off each other because they may be a little they may be a little shy as well. Like they may not be sure about how to progress their story. And I think a lot of players that we've run for, I've discovered are just not very familiar with the world, and they're not very, very sure about how to approach.
And also they don't know how to write hooks for other people to be involved in the backstory, and that's difficult. It's an acquired skill.
But conversely, there are also players who write many hooks and try to ingratiate their characters into other characters' backstories.
Without their permission.
Yes, without their permission, and that's also good.
Do not do that.
Yeah. So it really, I guess, comes down to negotiating and discussing with, your fellow players.
And I guess as a dungeon master as well, you need to set the tone for that.
That's totally correct.
So sometimes what I like to do when we're talking about something that's new and something that's more experienced is that I will pair up an experienced player with a less experienced player.
Yeah, that's always good.
And I'll ask them to have backstories that intersect.
And getting them to connect their characters to some extent, build some relationships there where they can basically riff off each other. I think that's really helpful.
A buddy.
Yeah, they have it's like a buddy system, right? So that's really helpful. And I dare say that for a lot.
That's a great thing to do for session zeros. If people come into there with an idea of how the characters are, but it's not fully formed, you can
connect with their
totally
connect your characters.
Fun interactions. Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a lot better for if you are playing in a very consistent campaign where everyone is kind of going to be playing through the same set of adventures over the period of maybe 10 to 12 weeks. Yeah. It's if you're starting out hardcover, I guess that kind of works. That's kind of okay.
Or even if you're playing in Adventurers League, if you're playing at higher tiers, there's no reason why your characters should not have crossed paths before.
Yeah, multiple times in fact.
Yeah.
Especially since higher level characters tend to be pretty rare in Singapore. Most of them don't live past tier 3.
I think it's more like people don't really dare to play tier 3 adventures. It can be scary.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's like a lot of players complain about how they don't want to play tier 3 and tier 4 because their characters can die.
Like, but your characters can die in tier 1 and 2 as well. It's no difference.
I suppose it might be that characters do tend to retire after certain levels as well. In fact, I think that there was a survey that was conducted, and most prevalent number of characters tend to be in tier 2 because that's where most adventures end. And most of the hardcovers are written with that in mind as well, from what I've discovered. So
but we call the end like late tier 2, early tier 2.
Yeah, like maybe level 11, 12, yeah, you're right. And most of them never even touch, 9th level spells. Which is a bit of a pity because 9th level spells are where it's really fun.
You just want to cast Meteor Swarm.
I'll have you know that if I could cast Meteor Swarm 4 times, I would.
I've seen you do it.
Yes, I totally have.
In fact, it was 5 times.
Oh yeah! Now that I think about it.
But by the time we hit the second time, the DM said, alright, adventure's over.
Yeah, I mean, if you rain enough meteors on everything, you can win the game. Yeah, but definitely I would say building character rapport, building character backstories together is a good way to get newer players involved. Especially if you have a table that's seated together, right?
A quick way of doing that at the table in Adventurers League. So I think earlier on I mentioned that some of the things that you can do to the party to interact is you buddy them up.
Yeah.
Maybe another one is that if you are established characters, have each player write down a rumor that someone might have heard about your character and just pass it around.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's entirely possible because if you think about it, if your character is reasonably high level, let's say you're above level 3, right? Because once you have done a few adventures, once you have made a bit of a name for yourself, and people in the region may start, thinking about, hey, Joe the fighter was known to have slain 12 goblins on his own while defending a caravan, or Bob the barbarian was known to have flown into a rage and taken the head of a gnoll with a single swing of his axe.
That sounds quite robbing, but yes. Come on, let's have something more gossipy.
Something more gossipy.
The kind of things that adventurers would talk about when they're drunk and attacked by other adventurers.
Jazion the bard died 25 times, all for the sake of one lady.
And the lady is you.
The DM's character, I guess. The NPC. Oh, I see something. Aha! Sneak attack!
That is unfair. I did not see that.
I guess that's where you failed your perception check.
I think it's more because my phone wasn't updating chat. But either way.
Well, anyway. Or if you definitely want something more gossipy and something more juicy, you posted it while I was talking. But I saw it, so I passed my perception check.
I see. Fatso Rocks was distracting. Also, and my phone is further.
Fair enough. But yeah, besides something a little bit more gossipy, something a little bit more, I guess, tabloid.
I heard that on that Mage's first adventure, his spell backfired. He set his hair on fire.
Now that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
And then you realize it wasn't a wizard that did it. It was a wild magic sorcerer.
Well.
Terrible. Who plays wild magic sorcerers anyway?
I heard that when they were commissioned to find some missing people, they fell into a sewer, and they forgot to wash the stink off, and they walked around smelling terrible for weeks.
I'm sure lots of people were,
Like, see,
pinching
it's
their
just
noses in the
just
process.
Like military, right? If you do something that's stupid, you're gonna get a nickname that sticks for a while, and that's what you're seeing in Adventurers.
That's true. Yeah, especially since adventuring is, you're kind of in a fraternity of your own in adventuring in that sense. And reputations and rumors do get around, and definitely if you have made a good reputation for yourself, sure. Or if you have made a name for yourself as someone who's completely useless. Oh, you know that sorcerer in the back? Yeah, that one. I heard.
Stand near them.
Yeah, don't stand near them. They set themselves and their friends on fire. Oh, and you know what? Every single adventure they go to, they die.
You think they're cursed or something?
Yeah, let's stay away from them. They're
Yeah.
not very reliable. That totally happens.
Gossipy.
Yeah, and adventurers tend to be gossipy for sure. So it's something you can definitely try to do at a table. Build
it
up
can be
with the
really
characters.
fun.
Yeah, I think it's a really cute kind of game. So what you want people to do is not just write down the rumor, maybe write down an actual exploit of the character as well. Which is why I always ask
You can do
the
both.
players. Yeah,
And you can pass it to different people.
totally. And
Don't be like that. I heard that, when their friends were in danger, they risk their lives to bring them back up. They're good-hearted. They're just not the most competent.
totally legit.
Yeah, see? And that's
You
really
mean they
interesting
use
character.
you mean they use your last spell slot to cast healing word?
But they quickened it, and then they fed their last potion to someone else.
So they got two people out at once. That's actually pretty good.
good,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's actually good economy, by the way.
And after that, they ran straight at the last enemy and tanked all their attacks.
And all their attacks of opportunity while they were at it.
Yeah, it was the bravest thing I've ever seen. It didn't work out very well for them, but they were very brave.
It was totally not because they ran in the wrong direction when they were trying to run away. But yeah, so there you go. Interesting things you can do at the table, right? So give your characters an actual exploit you can talk about, and maybe some rumor about your character that may not be validated. Like, for all you know, your character may be carrying this old ratty grandfather's sword, but it may have been because you used it in a way that was very dramatic. People might think that the sword is actually magical or something.
Yeah.
And that rumor may just go around in all sorts of circles, and you may have people targeting you for that matter. And that's entirely possible.
And in its medieval times, all the gossipy rumors that you can come up with, they're actually really fun to mess
Yeah,
around.
I know. Yeah. And you can have all the ladies and lords.
They don't have the quest givers have anything else to do.
Yeah, reading about all those rumors. There might be an adventurous gazette or something.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, journalism isn't well established in medieval times,
Tabloids
but
exist everywhere.
flybills, handbills.
Gossipy wizards pondering their orbs.
Let's not go there.
I mean, sure, come on.
So interesting ways you can do that. Another thing I would say that might be fun for your character to do, or for you to do for your character, is
Catchphrase.
yes, definitely catchphrases. And this is something I like to tell players to think about. And every time they use their catchphrase in a thematically appropriate manner, I award them inspiration. Because I want them to act that out and to roleplay that out a lot more. So what's a catchphrase that you use?
I will punish you in the name of the moon.
Totally not. Wasn't it I'll punish you in the name of Saloon?
Use different moon goddess.
Yes. But that totally works.
For NPC welfare everywhere.
Ah, yes, Vanya-chan.
Oh, another one. We can talk about this. Are you sure? Let's not be so hasty, shall we?
Coming out with interesting catchphrases is always important for your characters.
Oh, my favorite catchphrase.
Uh-huh.
Swift death to you who have wronged me.
I'm pretty sure that that's just you activating your own phone.
That's perfect for the character, though.
That is fair. Kavlindran was, after all, a
Shoot first, Holly.
yes. So yeah, interesting catchphrases will work, and coming up with those is part of the fun because they really reflect what your character does, right?
Yeah.
Or what your character thinks.
Or sometimes it's a catchphrase that you as a player use when you play the character.
Yeah,
Like, I'm the DM now.
yeah, that could totally work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the fun.
Or when you were playing a
Uh-huh.
wizard, you'd be like, make me a save, make me a save, make me a save. And you sit down, sipping your.
Or another
Okay.
thing that I like to say, that's for me to know and for you to find out.
Okay?
And all these things work.
Oh, I know. Well, but stop insisting. I smite. Non-lethal, please.
Good job.
These are things that iconic to your character.
And these definitely add a little bit
Yeah.
of character to your character too.
I mean, I'm sure that lots of people in chat have like catchphrases as well, or iconic things that characters have said. So why don't you just get them to share some?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of catchphrases have you used before in your characters? Feel free to let us know. We're definitely excited to hear as well. It's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
Coming up with catchphrases.
Especially when they're used at the right time. I think it's a really huge
Especially if
payoff.
it makes a dramatic impact.
Yeah.
And that is why they deserve inspiration for that.
Or even if you don't give them inspiration, you just give them advantage to check their obedience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even advantage works. And it's great to have. Especially if the character
As a dungeon master,
Uh-huh.
I totally give advantage when I think someone does something that's interesting or cool.
or
Even if they don't ask to use inspiration.
yeah, for sure. I give inspiration all the time when they do something that I think fits your character. Yeah, as long as they have told me a little bit about the character beforehand, and I think that it kind of works.
Especially in tier
Yeah.
1, right? Where
Especially in tier 1, where
combat is really
when things are so swingy and dice are so important.
yeah.
Yeah, so it makes all the difference for them.
I mean, like catchphrases like,
I mean,
can I cook that? I put it in the pot.
yes.
What else?
Well, when I play my isekai protagonist, I go, Nani, nani, nani? Eh? Nandayo? All the weird stuff. Okay, so Brenda says, I have a character that somehow manages to pull out random light reading books to fit any random topic. No! Sneak attack! Ah, I blocked it. Blocked it again. Closest I have to a catchphrase. Okay, yeah, I guess that kind of works.
That's more of like a habit, I would say.
It's a bit of a habit, but if you were quoting specific things from that book, then it would definitely be a catchphrase.
Mhm.
Like for example, if you ever said,
If every time you say something, you put like a book name, author's name, and page number,
yeah, that's totally a catchphrase.
that'd be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That'd be fun.
Like I
So and so insert fantasy writer, page something new.
yeah. Or like
And like to roleplay that, you could just
uh-huh.
have like a whole table of random author names and just roll a d
you could
roll
you
a
could
dice
randomly
every time.
you could pick a random name, you could pick a random title, and it could all be wrong. But hey, it's a fantasy world. Who cares?
So and the point is that it's wrong.
Exactly.
So you could spoof a whole bunch of your favorite author names into there
Uh-huh.
and just parody them.
You totally could. Yeah.
Yes.
And that'll be hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, the publishing industry in fantasy world is probably not the best, but
Yeah.
it's a start. It's a start. I mean, people,
I
probably
if you're
print
programming,
handbills
to
and
totally
stuff.
write a script for that.
You could, I guess, yeah, if you were able to mess around with bots or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could totally be legit. So catchphrases is one thing, habits is another. So like we talked about habits a little bit just now. So things like even the way people like shuffling their cards, or the way they shuffle their cards when they're playing.
So you keep flicking your cards and you play Magic the Gathering.
That is true.
The worst.
Yes, because the cards get caught, and
Yes.
they'll be less expensive.
Yes.
Secondary market.
So we bought you a nice cards and then flick them.
Fair
Flick
enough.
you.
The way they eat their food, that's also something that matters. Like
Maybe they eat with only one hand at a time because the other hand is always no weapon.
that's possible.
Yeah.
Or they may just
They dump everything into one bowl
Yeah.
and just
stuff everything in the bowl and just drink from the bowl, right?
Yeah.
Because they're on the go, right? Because they're
Yeah.
adventurers. So it's entirely possible that because of that,
dietary preferences.
Yeah. they're in a hurry. So throwing all the slop in the helmet and just drinking it.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's kind of disgusting.
Disgusting.
But I've heard that they have done it before in one of the fantasy books I read. They call it dwarf stew. But
I know what you're talking about, but it's still disgusting.
just
Disgusting.
trust the dwarves, right? It's always the dwarves. I swear.
The dwarves likely also have the alcohol to sanitize the helmet first.
Yeah, I guess you just pour everything in, alcohol into it.
Yeah, and just put stuff in so it becomes alcohol stew.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Dwarves.
Beef stew.
Fair enough.
It's delicious.
Fair enough. Even the way that they carry their weapons could mean something as well for characters. So that's something that you can explore as well.
Mhm.
Like if you always had 3 weapons at minimum on your body, or rogues with 7 different knives on their person, one in each sleeve, one in each boot, and
One strap to chest.
one strap to chest, 2 in the small of their back or something, right?
Yeah, 2 small at the back. They have a wire in the teeth.
Yeah. All these rogues and their all their hidden concealed items. Yeah, it's entirely possible because it pays to be prepared. Right.
Sharpened fingernails so that they can lockpick with it. Or cut.
I haven't seen that actually working out very well at all. I don't think that will actually work out very well. No.
Probably not, but I've seen sharpened fingernails so that they can cut open ropes. And it works in
Uh-huh.
fantasy world because
It works in fantasy world because you have different races with like
or
claws or
different
whatever.
bloodlines
Right?
even.
Yeah, so that will work. That will work because there's magic involved.
Or maybe a special manicure material so that it's metal in there.
Or they may have kind of laced their fingernails with like magic powder or something.
Or poison.
Yeah, or poison. Yeah, that kind of works. Natural weapons, especially. I think it makes sense. Like a tabaxi, springing a claw to try to saw at a rope. That will work.
Yeah.
Yeah, tieflings with claws. Feral tieflings. Maybe that would make sense.
Yeah.
So I suppose that does kind of fit into the story.
I mean, if it's something that a certain Thieves Guild teaches, it actually makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
especially if they have specialized training, right?
Yeah.
Because every guild may have some secrets that they don't share with other guilds. Because you can't expect everything in the world to be uniform. It's not like everyone goes to wizard school or
Okay,
rogue
but
school or
wizard
fighter
is
school,
different.
and everything is the same.
Yeah.
It's not standardized. It's not formalized, standardized education. Not like Singapore PSLE, O levels, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So totally different. There might be a rogue guild that specializes in, makeup and cosmetics. Because why? Disguise kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, just deception, disguise kids. They may also be affiliated to some theatrical troupe, for all we know.
Or a brothel.
Or a brothel, yeah, or bordello, a very common place in medieval times in fantasy stories.
The oldest profession.
Yeah, or you might be part of a thieves guild that specializes in mechanisms. So you might learn how to use your thieves tools with greater proficiency, which accounts for your expertise. You may learn how to spot traps and disable them.
They're well known for setting up new defense systems for
Yeah.
nobles.
They may be a security specialist instead of a rogue that actually steals stuff. Right.
Just because you're a rogue doesn't need to steal stuff.
Yeah, and rogue training is more expressed as generalized, specialized training in in certain skills.
Yeah, maybe it's got Cisco. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that could be quite interesting to see for sure.
Yeah. Like, I mean, as a dungeon master, I think your job is kind of to prompt your players to think about this kind of things and work with them to come up with something fun like that.
Yeah, and I would say that in Adventurers League, which is what we usually play, you may want to take a few minutes before the game begins to talk to each player to get a good rundown on their characters and what their characters are capable of, as well as a little bit of their backstory. Because weaving all that into the story is great. And I think a lot of DMs in Adventurers League kind of forget that. And that's one of the challenges, I would say, because most of the time when you jump into a table for Adventurers League, you just don't seem to have a whole lot of time. So most of the backstory gets kind of shelved and you just jump straight into the adventure and everyone just sits down, goes through the objectives, and that's it. So where's the fun in that?
I can definitely be fun, I would say, but I think having the extra layer, the extra impetus of being incorrect, making that choice incorrect, that helps so much for immersion.
It definitely also gives the characters more room to grow because your success or failure in that mission in particular may impact how your character progresses in the future, right? It impacts their story.
Yeah.
And that is really, really helpful.
And I mean, honestly speaking, when I'm playing adventures, I'm not worried about whether or not I'm going to succeed or fail. I'm not.
Yeah, because
it's more interesting to me to be telling a story
for sure,
and seeing what other people talk about at the table, because when I'm writing on my own, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
For sure.
Right? Or even if I'm being completely random and off the cuff, I can predict everything that's going to happen, that will likely happen.
I mean, most of these
I
adventures are
need
pretty
other
linear.
people there to throw spanners into whatever I'm doing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And even if the other players are more, loot motivated, or they're just there because hey, this adventure awards a very powerful magic item at the end, and I'm absolutely farming.
Sure.
Seeing them play and interact, and seeing them react to your actions as a character is part of the fun.
Yep.
Like whenever I play,
Even
whenever
if
you
you're playing
play,
it for the loot, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be difficult, or the story's gonna be boring.
Yeah, part of D&D is really the story. What makes the story interesting? What makes the story exciting for you is also the other players.
The loot is meaningful if you have a story to tell from.
Yeah, and
In order to get this player beats, I got eaten by a jelly cube.
5 adventurers died for their sins.
I was the only survivor,
Well, they died for their sins, so too bad for them.
and I didn't have to pay for the rest of the screen. Thank you, AL.
Exactly. So yeah.
And I mean, we're talking as well about our most memorable games, right? I mean, since Phantom is here,
Yeah.
He was actually one of the players in that game, and that was I think I say third game?
Third game.
Second
Second
game I
game.
had ever run.
Second game you ran that day for sure.
It was the second game I had
It was
ever run in 5th ed for someone other than our private table.
That is fair.
So it's the third game I have run overall.
It was your third. Yeah.
Third game I ever run 5th edition, and I ran a tier 3 game because I like pain.
Well, you wouldn't have run it if you were not competent. So that's the thing. Being good enough to run it is a skill.
Yeah, I think like the interesting thing as well was that the characters really fixated on the NPC and his story, and they bonded very well with him.
And that is why we have Kolana X Dakamir, right?
Yes, it's a love story for the ages.
It was a better love story than Twilight, that's for sure.
That's not hard.
I don't know. I mean, Curse of Strahd.
I think that Curse of Strahd is a terrible love story. Let's not go there. It's not even a love story.
Some people love it though. I hear that they run chapter 4 all the time.
That's a love story for me.
It's a loot story.
Yeah. Very good.
So yeah. Wow, we've really talked a whole lot about character stories and stuff today.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that we can argue about. That we have argued about.
Yeah, we have definitely argued about
the best way to approach it. As a dungeon master, as a player, what we're looking for.
I mean, definitely for me, it's all about making sure the players have their goals and motivations all set, having their backstories, and having their backstories be not, one-liners. I mean, give me. I don't need 5
Okay, but
pages.
beyond the one-liners, my problems when I ask them about the character, and all they tell me is their backstory.
No,
Who are you?
they're not
It's like when I
quite
ask
able
you
to bring
who
it.
you are, you don't tell me I went to this school and that school and this other school. Also
They
here,
don't need to go
here
into that
are my
because-
co-curricular activity awards. I was in the sports team. I scored this amount for my arts. I don't need to know that. I'm not interested in that. Who are you?
That's one thing a lot of players have
Yeah.
to put out there. Because if they're able to sum up their character in one paragraph, and that's going to be the defining feature of the character, I think that's something that they need to have, and that is great for them as well because they can use that as a starting point for everything else. Character descriptions, how they carry themselves, their personality, their quirks, everything, right? So back to character.
What is an example? Who are you? One of the characters I'm sure can happily answer that.
The
And
name's
not
Bull
just every
Tricky.
time.
Fastest straw this side of Sword Coast,
What about the other side?
and some say the Moonsea. Yeah, that's it. I'll have you know, I can put this crossbow bolt through your eye from 30 paces away.
Nani?
And then he's gonna take a swig from his hip flask.
And that's the thing, right? So, as a quest-giving NPC, you're gonna ask questions of characters. You're gonna ask them about who they are, and if they can't answer in character, then there's something very wrong with that.
Yeah, totally answering character.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that players need to get more comfortable with. Every time I play the role of quest giver in Adventurers League, when I address the characters, I tell them, I'll usually tell the players, please reply in character. Please respond in character so I can give you inspiration. And many a times they tend to forget. And they fall back into the usual routine of just, saying things out of character and asking questions out of character. And I'm kind of okay with that because this is a habit that needs to be developed over time. But definitely I would love to see more people describing things without mechanical languages as far as possible. Less mechanical language.
Yeah.
And in
maybe
character as possible.
inject a bit of personality into there.
So let's take Bolt Tricky as an example, right? Just now I mentioned he was the fastest draw this side of the Sword Coast
Okay.
and the Moonsea. And these are two places that are quite a distance from each other in the world of Forgotten Realms. Right? So you can kind of tell that he's exaggerating a little bit. And And when you assume that he says he's the fastest draw with something, you think that he's probably a pretty good hand crossbow, which is what he was saying just now, right? He could put a crossbow bolt through the eye of someone from 30 paces.
If you were playing a sheltered noble, maybe you go, oh, that's really good. What kind of artist are you?
Yeah, you might because you might not be aware of that, and the way the character carries themselves and interacts with NPCs will totally show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you have sheltered nobles who read all the chapbooks and they're like, "Oh, adventurers, you must lead very exciting lives. Please tell me about your exploits."
What's that smell?
Oh, you're an adventurer. You're unwashed. Are you cultured even? Do you know what's this?
Servants, come here.
Oh, you've never heard of hygiene?
And a whole bunch of servants show up and start fanning in the other direction, spraying incense everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great way of setting the NPC's personality.
Exactly, right. So that totally works. And NPCs definitely have to have their personalities as well. And if they
And
can
give the
contrast,
party something to react to.
yeah, and if it contrasts with the players, even better.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing better than seeing water and oil coming together at the table. Yeah, so that's part of the fun, and you as the DM, you're definitely gonna enjoy the interactions for that.
Not really. Like, when I run games, I ask you,
Uh-huh.
who are you? Who do you want to be? And why are you here?
And those are great questions to
Yeah.
ask.
And it's really funny because like the who are you question, people normally go, I'm a level blah 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 blah. And it's like
But that's not what you as a DM want, because when I ask who are you, you tell me in character. Yeah.
it's actually a philosophical question.
Mm-hmm.
So how your character answers that is actually interesting.
That's true.
Yeah.
So if you were trying to be funny about it, you could answer in response to someone saying, "Who are you?
I am nobody.
Why are you? How are you? What are you?" Everything is relative. We do not exist. We are but pieces of paper, parchment, floating in the great cosmos, at the whim of an unseen hand. The gods roll the dice, and we work and move according to their whims.
Mortals pay the price, right?
Yes, the mortals have paid the price. These poor mortals. I mean, can you imagine what happens if you tear those pieces of paper?
Or light them on fire.
Mm-hmm. Usually when a character dies, isn't it?
Or who am I? Well, my friends call me Netflix. Some call me Natalie. You can call me Nat.
GNAT, right?
And who am I? Well, question depends on how much you're paying. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Natalie was a fun character.
Complete asshole.
Natalie was great. Natalie was
The most unreliable character ever, but people kept believing her.
That's because people don't have very high wisdom scores.
They really don't.
Or the characters don't have very high wisdom scores.
I mean, when you lie every other time you speak, eventually the truth gets mixed then, and that's interesting.
Oh, when people believe in even a lie can be not true, right? Belief is the power of the planes, just like in Planescape.
I guess that's also something that's really interesting is that when you're talking in D&D, you don't have to tell the truth.
You don't have to tell the truth all the time.
But people always assume you're telling the truth.
People can
Especially
assume
when
whatever.
you're playing an NPC.
Mm-hmm. But that's also because people cannot see your character sheet. They can't see your character sheet. They shouldn't be seeing your character
And
sheet.
characters don't have to tell the truth.
Exactly. And that's also one of the little pet peeves I kind of have about playing in a public game or Adventurers League or something. Where
It's just the truth from a certain point of view.
yeah, for sure. I think people fixate too much on character sheets and non-mechanical language is always the
just
superior option.
assuming
But
that
hey,
if the DM answers someone's question, they all know the answer.
yeah.
That's
definitely
like
one of
the
the
DM away asks.
yeah, it's one of those little things, right? Which is why I like passing out little slips of paper around when I have important information that I want only specific characters to know.
Oh, I know. I just asked them to step away from the table and have a little chat.
Yeah, we do that a bit, I think, the both of us.
And I asked them to explain what they overheard
Tell the rest
in
of the
their
party.
own
Yeah.
words
Tell the rest of the party in your own
to the
words.
rest of the party. Yeah.
And that makes sense if
It's
they
great
wanted to
because they
establish
often
shared
forget
information.
exactly what I said.
Or
It is
they
great. I love it.
imagine that
They add
what
details that
yes,
weren't there.
exactly. They interpret it
It's
in a
the
way.
broken telephone effect is
Yeah,
the
it's
best thing
totally
to
and it totally makes sense because that's what happens in the fantasy world as well.
Yeah.
Because information is unreliable.
And they totally me ask, right? Then I'm just like,
Mm.
sure.
Because I do remember that there are a lot of players that have a habit of making assumptions because they saw someone's character sheet, or they make assumptions because the DM tells some information to one particular person at the table, and they think that everybody else has the same information, even though they may not have the training or the inclination to understand that information. And that is a problem.
And they don't ask each other in character.
Yeah. So that assumption that everyone knows is a prevalent problem in AL.
Talk to each other in character. Come on.
Yeah, they don't talk to each other in character at all. And it's very,
the most
very
fun part of
obvious.
this game. Come on. Like, the dungeon master is only one person if you have 5 people at the table. The best way to make a game interesting, especially if it's not your turn yet,
Conversation,
talk to
banter.
other characters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just banter between your characters. I think it's very, very much more fun.
And I have some characters whose
Uh-huh.
entire thing is just being as offensive as possible to other characters.
And it kind of works.
Yeah.
You can carry it off. I don't think that it's that easy to do, to be honest.
I mean, you need to know that you're being offensive in character and not take that out of character.
But the challenge is always making sure that everything stays in character because some
People take it
character
very
some
personally.
people do take it personally. So it's something to be a little bit more aware of when you're playing with different players as well, because
Yeah.
with pugs you can never tell.
Or just state this is in character. Out of character, feel free to
Feel
get
free
into a fight
yeah,
with me
exactly.
or argue back. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are the little interactions that I think that players need to have more of, which will make Adventurers League a lot more fun.
Simply.
Yeah. So we simply don't see it enough.
Your character is not your alignment,
Exactly.
right? Like, if you notice in all the time so far, we've
Mhm.
not mentioned alignment at all. It's not been important.
Yeah, alignment is something that we feel is a little bit more relative. It's a good indicator on your character sheet, but that is a game mechanic, because some things matter for alignment. But how your character interacts with the world, how your character reacts to any situation, is entirely dependent on how you as a player see the character. Right? I play a show nobleman who's a diplomat, who is nothing but the most helpful and friendly and charitable character. He gives buffs to his party members, he uses his scrolls and his potions liberally on everyone's benefit. And guess what? He's lawful evil. And it's perfectly okay. And nobody's any the wiser. So this was actually an experiment that I conducted when I was playing AL in season 8, I think, season 8. And I did a bit of a survey, and everyone assumed the character was good.
Lawful good.
Lawful good.
It's so helpful.
But yeah, totally an evil character. Because can you imagine if the rest of your party perished? You would be forced to do everything yourself. How unfortunate would that be?
In fact, I recall that character thought that Phantom's character was a cleric and handed her a bunch of cleric scrolls.
Yes, I remember that.
And then she handed them back going, actually, I'm a warlock.
But that's also great role playing on Phantom's part, because never once did Phantom mention that she was a warlock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good. And the assumption was made
And she
in
was
character
dressed
as well.
cleric as well. Yeah.
So it made sense in character.
I can't cast this spell, I don't have holy weapon.
How unfortunate. It's alright, I can cast it for you.
Yeah, that was cute.
And that was what happened.
That was cute.
So yeah. I mean, doing things in character, right? And having that kind of interaction, that kind of misunderstanding in character is great as well, because that leads to more information being passed at the table.
I think it helps a lot if you make characters that are a little more outgoing.
Mhm.
Like when I was playing Vanya, it was not easier to interact with other characters because she would
Now, Vanya was very interactive.
very interactive. She would just speak to other characters and not notice their reactions to her.
Yeah, Vanya was a great magical girl of love and justice.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think people still remember her for being a magical girl of love and justice, right?
She's so cringe, but she's so happy about it.
That's the best kind of cringe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, come on, everyone, let's beat up the dragon.
Yes, totally. And that was great.
Like, I mean, just having a person, whether when someone speaks your character's name, they should have a very clear idea of the character, and if you can't quite pull it off, it just means that, I mean, either they don't notice things, or you could work a little bit more on portraying the character. Though
Okay.
it's not easy.
I think we just got rid of a sparrow. Yay, good riddance.
Goodbye.
Yes, goodbye.
Goodbye, Spell.
Yeah.
Shonen I is very different, and spelled quite differently as well.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's spelled very differently as well.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I think we're almost
Almost.
at well, it's been about 2 hours from the looks of it, so I think
I mean, if you want, you can totally ask us questions.
yeah, if
I
you totally
had
want to, I
answer
think we
all of
can
them.
have a bit of a chat
Yeah.
before we call it a day.
Like, what do you guys have trouble with when it comes to characters? Whether it's backstories or classes or even names. Because actually, I come up with names as like one of the last things I do for a character.
One of the last things you do as a character.
Yeah, I think.
That's actually pretty interesting because by comparison, I always come up with the name first. Which
Because
is
I build my character
little weird.
concept first, then I come to name after.
you come up with the concept first. Yeah, I usually come up with the concept and the name almost simultaneously, I'll say. Probably, well, maybe a random name just sticks in my head. I say, hey, what does this name remind me of? And then I'll just start building from it.
Fair.
Yeah, or sometimes I may just get some random inspiration from somewhere and say, hey, I think I could make a character out of this.
Sometimes you just have a sound stuck in your head and you kind of just modify that a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Or perhaps
But for me, I normally build with the character first and then start adding stuff.
You start
For
adding
my
stuff.
recent hardcover character,
uh-huh.
his race, his concept,
The one we've been talking about quite a
the
bit.
one we've been talking about.
Yeah. The one that's gonna
I that just came up with the name like last week
after building everything else.
after everything else.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Because I think sometimes names do define a character a bit too much.
Mm.
But that's also relevant. That also kind of makes sense. It's like
I want to pick like what culture
Uh-huh.
character comes from, or sometimes the character's personality. I want the name to reflect that.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, typically, another way of doing it, and this is something I've been doing a fair bit of, and it's something I usually do when I build new characters as well. Is I think of a concept first.
Yeah.
I think of a particular gimmick that I want to play up, or a little bit of something that I haven't had a chance to try out.
A backstory feature that you think would be fun to play.
Yeah. Like a little bit of a backstory feature is always great. Like Bolt Tricky was a good indicator. It was like he started out as a mule for all the AL items. Yeah, I started as a mule for all the AL magic items. I didn't have a place to put on any characters because back then magic items disappeared if you didn't have someone to mule them on.
Yeah.
Right. So Bolt Tricky started out as that, and I decided, hey, he's gonna be a down and out, a washed up. Not washed out because
Okay.
I know that's a common problem.
Right?
Washed out
Washed up.
city guard.
Okay.
There was a bit too zealous
Trigger
about his
happy.
work. Zealous about his work.
Okay.
Got on the wrong side. Got on the wrong side of some important people,
Okay. And got kicked out
and
of the guard.
and got kicked out of the guard. Yeah. Bit of an alcoholic. Because he lost
Then
his
you got on
job.
the wrong side of someone because
Of
you're
fine.
thinking too much more on the job. Or maybe it's the result of getting kicked out.
It's a result of getting kicked out for sure. And yeah, he fell into some cronies. Became a performer at a circus as a trick shot kind of character for a bit. And
Which is where he gets his silly introduction.
yes, which is why the silly introduction totally works.
Yeah.
Fastest draw decided sword coast and Moonsea. And most people will just buy it. Most people lap it up. But I don't talk about his past. I don't talk about his backstory with the law.
White woman character.
Yeah, because it doesn't really come up in Adventurers League, right?
Or unless you're running a module that actually
Might bring you back to the town.
Because if I recall, that character was playing in one of my games and it was relevant.
Yes, but only because that adventure took place in a certain town. But otherwise, why would you do that? Which also brings us to the point as well, like tying your character to a location or a established town or an established city.
Faction.
Yeah.
That's not one of the 5 factions.
Yeah, because oh my goodness, everyone's talking about the 5 factions, even though the 5 factions are like totally wrecked after the Red War. And they don't exactly work the same way.
And if you're talking about 5 factions, which faction of the 5 factions?
Yeah, are you an open harper or are you a hidden harper?
Are you one of the harpers in the Naval Silverhead? And help with stuff, which almost broke off to form their own.
The Moonstars?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a different story as well, like what kind of what specific part of the faction are you with? If you're from the Lord's Alliance, are you part of a merchant princess faction?
Are you there as a noble?
Are you a noble? Are you part of the Mercantile Association? What? All these things matter.
Are you a mercenary going out there hoping for some connections? Are you like the second son of a noble house trying to form your own influence base?
Yeah, are you working for quick cash? Or are you working to build your own merchant association? Whatever, that kind of stuff. Because the Lord's Alliance is not just a group of nobles and influential mercantile people.
Yeah.
Right? They have a lot of political influence, but at the same time they also have a lot of things holding them back because of politics. It's precisely because they're involved in politics.
Yeah, and I think that most people only assign themselves to one of these big factions,
but they don't think about
how they could maybe
where they fit in.
Or they don't think about how they could use a small relation in the actual module itself. So for the whole thing of I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy is a great
idea.
It's a great way and it's also a great hook. God damn it.
Anyway.
Yes. Okay, I saw that.
I know a guy. Okay.
Okay. Oh, she's got 15.4k to use. Okay, so John says he likes to often come up with a concept and build and make up a lore-fitting backstory.
Yeah.
Like Yukanda.
Yeah, so anyway. I think we're talking about how the I know a guy thing.
I know a guy is great.
Let's talk about how it works.
Alright, so you know a guy. You're in Malmaster.
So I have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to reach out to someone to fix it.
You need
I'm gonna ask my party member, hey, do you know anyone that could get us into Hillsfar?
Hillsfar, you say? Well, if you think about it, many Four Fingers might be able to do us a favor or two. It's an old friend of mine. Worked a job together once. Can't say he's the most trustworthy, most reliable, all things considered. He kind of botched that job that one time. That's how he got his name.
And are you sure I can trust?
I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, but he's the only one we have.
So, what we basically did was that we set a problem that we had to solve. We got a player to basically come up with a character that they had some relation with. And what's going to happen is that the Dungeon Master is going to take that NPC and weave that into the story somehow. And in fact, the interesting thing is that if you notice when Crimson was talking about it, he didn't say whether or not they had a good relationship.
In fact, me not saying that they had a good relationship was even more important.
Because it meant that the dungeon master could set the NPCs as
Exactly.
favorites him.
Yeah, and the NPC could be something that you work with a DM ahead of time for if you want to as well. So
But it's more fun when you don't do it ahead
Yeah.
of time. Right?
you could just throw the DM a curve, and the DM will like, oh my goodness, what the hell are you doing? Why is the ball down in my court? And that's part of the fun.
As a DM, I love that.
Yeah,
not all DMs
I
agree
don't
with
know.
that.
I don't know if every DM could, pick that up.
But it can be fun.
It can definitely be fun. Ah! Aha, I blocked it again.
What? No, we didn't dock it.
Yes, I totally did.
Did not. That was a distraction.
Yeah, so if you, I mean, I guess as a DM, I like building those NPCs for my players. So I tend to. So one of the things I normally do when I do an audition for any hardcovers that I write is to tell the players, hey, you were aided by an NPC. You were helped by someone. You had a benefactor for somewhere, or you may have a
What
connection.
did
to
they help
someone.
you? How did they help you?
Mhm.
And what's the name?
Yeah, so I wouldn't ask for the name. I would just ask them, in what circumstances did they assist you? And
In some cases, you let us pick the name.
in some cases, I let you pick the name, yes. But in most of the time, I will pick the name of the character, or I may find an existing NPC in the hardcover that I can interconnect with the players because it's a good fit and it makes sense. Like when I run Dragon Heist, for example, I make sure every single player has a connection to some NPC. They can build them, they can make the NPC themselves. It could be a made up NPC. It doesn't matter because the world is big enough. Right? Or it could be a named NPC in that particular story, in that setting, that's really, crucial to the story, and I'll just work that in and it kind of fits. And that's the whole plan, right? That's part of the fun. That's how you integrate the characters and their connections and the people that they are familiar with, the people they know, and you help to build that network so that the story can be more interesting.
And I think having a NPC that you have a relation to helps anchor the players and the characters. It helps them focus a little bit more on what's going on. Because they go, hey, I know that guy.
Mhm.
So when they actually roleplay, they're more likely to care about that NPC. And if, let's say, that the character chooses to attack the NPC, then you have a great recipe for party conflict there.
Yeah, that's great for party conflict. Or if the NPCs
Don't be afraid of party conflict.
or if the NPCs they know come from opposing factions,
Yeah.
or they come from they have different kinds of different
Motivations.
self-interests and motivations that will definitely lead to conflict because the characters are going to be pulled in different directions, right?
Correct.
And that is great because
Don't be afraid of party
yeah,
conflict.
it forces characters to
Have rules
evolve.
at the table so that PvP doesn't get out of hand. But
But the Adventurers
Improving a
Adventurers League
character
already has some
is
PvP rules
wonderful.
anyway, so it's great.
I mean, not everyone's being not everyone knows the rules.
Mhm.
Codes of conduct may vary by table.
But the most important thing is that if the characters have something that they need to resolve, if they have any conflict, get them to resolve it in character.
Yeah, I mean, I often hear from a lot of players. They tell me, you know what, this person made this choice in character, and my character wouldn't agree with it. So I'm like, okay.
Then why don't you
Right.
act it out?
But I don't want to fight at the table, so I didn't say anything. But I'm very happy you did.
And that's
Yeah,
something that's it's a bit too late when it's after the game.
Yeah.
If you feel strongly for something, like
Right.
obviously if characters don't see eye to eye during a scenario, but you as adventurers, you know that if you don't react, you don't interact at that particular portion of the story, bad stuff is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Work on it. Work on that because that's so crucial.
If it's an RP choice, make an RP choice, makes it a lot
Yeah.
more fun.
I mean, especially if your characters are if it's the difference between life and death, or maybe an NPC or something, and that's a really big choice, right? Are you gonna take the moral route, or are you gonna just leave it well alone?
Or maybe it's not a moral route, but it's someone that you care about, or that reminds you of someone from your backstory.
Yeah, and that is great, and that is something that you can definitely explore as a
Make
as a
people
character.
justify the things they do.
Mhm. And
That's a great way for both
however,
of you to
yeah,
flesh out
and
characters.
however, what happens after that, right? It's
Yeah.
gonna be a story point. It's gonna be an important, memorable incident that you can work into your character's story.
Yeah.
Because your character's stories evolve. Characters do
Don't
not.
just keep everything to yourself.
Yeah, characters do not stay in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And that's something very important for a character, right? You're not stuck as this instance copy of this character forever.
So I guess a good example would be, maybe I am a ranger or a druid,
Mm-hmm.
and we encounter some bullies in the forest.
Blaze in the forest.
Yes. For whatever reason, and they
Okay.
attack our party.
Okay.
After we dispatch the aggressive ones,
Uh-huh.
we find that there are a couple of juvenile ones.
All right.
What would the party do?
I don't know. I think someone's gonna make them emergency rations.
Or maybe someone wants to take
Pure
them
fish are hatchlings,
maybe
right?
someone wants to take them as pets.
Yeah, that's possible.
I might argue that they should be left alone because they are natural denizens of the forest. At most, can be relocated elsewhere. But if you take them as a pet and enslave them, that's not something that, as a nature lover, I would endorse.
That is certainly fair.
Yeah.
The noblemen in the party might say that they want to keep one on their estate because it looks like a
Exotic, perhaps.
yeah, exotic pet, symbol of status.
Indeed. Might be a great mount.
Assuming they can tough out the vibrations and all.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose. It might be so have the characters fight for it, but in character.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let the players work it out, and of course they can discuss it out of character first, and then have their in character moment after that and play it out, and that'll be more
If
interesting.
you're having difficulty role playing it, you can just talk about it out of character. So
Yeah.
you can say, my character would disagree with this because she believes that the bullies should be left to roam free and not enslaved as someone's pet or novelty. And that's all.
And then and they may eventually come to a compromise because the noble may say that if they're left alone in the wild, the bullies are going to be eaten by some other predator, for example,
Or
And-
hunted down because they are too close to a settlement.
yeah, they might be a danger to the settlement.
Yeah.
And the hunters from the settlement or adventurers from the settlement might cause more problems. So the noble taking them under his charge because of things like noblesse oblige or whatever will actually work.
Yeah. Or maybe they arrange for them to be relocated. Someone reaches
On a
out
nature
to their,
preserve.
to their faction
perhaps.
to
Yeah,
for them
those
to be moved elsewhere.
those will be tree huggers from the Emerald Enclave, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that was actually them doing their job for once.
Yeah, totally. Instead of causing terrorist incidents in the wood scene.
That's fun.
Yeah, totally legit.
And it also shows that your characters care about the world as a whole.
Mhm.
And they have their own motivations. And their own takes even on small things.
For sure.
It's not just about life and death, saving the world or not saving the world.
Yeah, there could be very, very mundane things as well that I think help to flesh out characters.
Even a shopping incident, a shopping episode is a great
shopping
way
episode?
to roleplay. Yeah, it is. I think so.
I'm not that fond of shopping episodes myself, but I think that role-playing a meal is a very good way of showcasing the characters. Because how the characters interact at the dining table is
Or how about
very, very
when
invaluable.
they supply themselves for their first expedition together.
Oh yeah, I guess
That's also fun.
preparing for an expedition is a great idea.
Yeah.
Because it does show the kind of care and attention that the character might have. What kind of
Who's gonna take what job? And who
yeah
assigns the jobs?
Yeah.
Right? Like you might send the ranger to look for the best dried meats and herbs in
you could.
the market.
Or you might also send the wizard to maybe look at maps and cartography items and all that because they may be more familiar with such things. Like you may send the fighter to go purchase arrows.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I'm not too fond of
Take the
shopping.
blacksmith to find new gear.
Yeah,
raise it up,
blacksmith,
upgrade, maintain it, oil it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally legit. Buy horses.
Yeah. Buying horses. You want someone
Horses
that's
is a big
actually-
deal actually because horses are actually quite rare if
Yeah.
you think about
and
it.
expensive.
And yeah, very expensive for a fledgling adventurer. Being able to afford a riding horse is a luxury, I would say.
Yeah. Potions,
Potions,
because you don't want inferior quality potions. That go
I
low on
guess
value.
they may need to find a good alchemist for
Yeah.
that, and getting someone versed in alchemy or the arcane ways,
Getting someone that
or a
can-
healer.
Or someone that can handle bureaucracy to get the permits for them.
Getting the right permits or hunting permits.
Yeah. Or getting a letter of introduction from the Lord to another city so they can enter with no issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I think that kind of party preparation is really interesting to roleplay out.
I guess that also
Although
goes
it's
to show
basically a
that
shopping episode.
it goes to show the depth of effort, the amount of thought that goes into that, and it also shows how much effort the characters and the players themselves actually put into developing, I guess the kind of knowledge and the kind of mentality the characters have. Because if they're more prepared or they're less prepared, or if someone just says, hey, I don't care about this, you do whatever you want, I'm just gonna go chill at the tavern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's someone in the party who's actually, walking around with a checklist going, alright, is this done? Is that done? Okay.
The logistics officer, right?
Yeah, the logistics officers. That's fun.
Yeah, I guess it's a good way, it's a good indicator as well to show how the character reacts. The mindset of the character is very important. And it just comes out how meticulous they are.
Yeah. And someone's like, alright, so the goods for this we pack to this caravan, this other caravan will have this
Whether
item.
they're organized
We're
or
gonna
not.
spread out across caravans in case we lose one of them. So that, our food stuff isn't all in one caravan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
These are the things
putting
that
everything into one
I
caravan
do on
is
characters
hilarious.
that are a lot more meticulous.
But,
I used to do that in our party. And you know it.
I know it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Amaris was the team mom. Well,
She was.
and then there was porridge.
Oh, maybe, in the party, the nobleman is not allowed to go shopping.
Because the nobleman
Never bargain.
the nobleman doesn't understand the importance of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
So
they don't understand the actual price of things.
so they are wont to be easily cheated.
Yes.
Because imagine going to the market and everyone sees this posh gentleman dressed in furs and elaborate, doublet and hose and circles and whatever, right?
Oh.
Blocked it. And if they come up to the drink store.
Yeah.
They drink and they're gonna buy bubble tea.
And like
They're gonna end up adding
paying 1 gold per cup.
1 gold per cup. That's like $10.
It's more. That's like $50 or $100 even.
I guess if you put in every sort of pearl and every sort of topping.
Yeah. The 1.5 liter version.
Yeah. And why would you ever do that?
Yeah. So things like that,
Mhm.
definitely, I guess, is a way to showcase your character. And the fact that your party members know you are not allowed to spend money because you never
You overspend.
you overspend, you never haggle, you don't know the quality of goods, and you never bring a purse. See?
Well, never bringing their purse is easy. They just need someone else to pay for it. It's like only a child.
Yeah, so like, if a nobleman, he's got like, alright, my sister will pay for it, and then turn around, and then realize that their retainers are busy handling other things, and they're just like, don't worry, I swear I will pay for it. And then the drink store lady just like, excuse me, sir, who are you? That's a really fun in character thing to do.
I mean, it's entirely possible because if they left their estate or if they left the town that their family governed, where they were well loved and everyone gave them free stuff because they were were this ruling family.
Because the family would pay the tab for it.
Yeah, exactly. But
And then
it's completely different
imagine
when
as
you're in
as
another
a
town.
party member, you're on your way back from getting potions, and you just see your party nobleman standing at the drink store arguing with
With the auntie.
with the auntie. It's fun.
Yeah, that's actually a very good in character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need people that can rotate those flaws.
Exactly,
And
and it's gonna be tough
Yeah.
because I think it's a skill that you have to develop as you go along. And for a lot of players, it's definitely about getting the comfort level. So the most important thing for them is definitely first of all get into the headspace of your character, flesh your characters out. You need to know exactly what motivates your character, what your character wants, what are your character's hopes and
And what your
dreams.
character doesn't care about.
Yeah,
In this case, doesn't care about money because doesn't have to worry or think about it.
that is very true. And I mean, from there you can just develop, move along, build up everything else for your character. It's like drawing small circles and widening the circle as you go. Basically, you build around the character, so you get all the little bits and pieces of information, and then use it to flesh out the character and develop a more holistic picture of the character, right? And once you get comfortable enough, start thinking about lines that your character makes out. This is where we have the catchphrases. You have their common tone of voice, the common way that they describe things
Think
for
about
themselves.
how the people around you will perceive your
Uh-huh.
character, right? Whether or not that actually is like the character, and then you either keep up that image
Mhm.
or you subvert that image.
Yeah, and that's
So, for example, if you are a nobleman and everyone thinks that you're really bad with spending money, show that you're wrong. The moment you sit down at the negotiating table, you become
you become
this
very
very shrewd negotiator.
adept at
You're
negotiating.
nickel and diming everyone over everything, and it's just like
And then
wrong
and,
with
and
this.
then
Right.
people just realize, hey, you're actually a penny pincher.
Yeah.
But that could also relate to your character's backstory because
Yeah.
they could be a newly minted noble family
Right.
where everyone in the family worked their asses off just to make enough money to scrimp and save to buy the
a noble
title.
Yeah.
And they are then, and because of that, they are dirt poor at home. Other than keeping up appearances, they have nothing.
Yeah.
So they really have to nickel and dime everything. And so
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense.
Or maybe their grandparents were the treasurer of the kingdom.
Yeah.
So they learn how to negotiate and nickel and dime everyone
And they learn how to use the abacus as well, right?
Yeah.
Mm,
with one hand.
very good.
That's fun.
Yeah,
That's
see,
so-
these are
so-
these are little things that would definitely build up the character a fair bit, even. Yeah. So that's great. So think about all these little things, and once you have all that down on paper, start making small notes that you can use at the D&D table. Things like your character description, common things that your character says.
You don't need to have this from the start out, though it helps a lot.
Yeah, so build it as you go along because I think it takes some time to get into the headspace of a character, right? You need to play the character a couple times, familiarize yourself with how the character behaves, or the character will evolve as you play. And that is fairly commonplace as well because every scenario that you play through with the character may give you a new insight into how the character interacts with the world.
Yeah, that's really important.
Because characters do not stay
But that
stagnant.
can be a lot of work.
Mhm.
So, if you find that you're having difficulty with that, it's okay to take a break.
Yeah.
Just relax a little bit.
And just play for fun, which is very normal as well. Because in Adventurers League, you pick the adventures that you want to play, right? So it's very, very likely. In fact, more often than not, you could consider picking adventures based on the blurb, on the description of the adventure,
That you think would be a challenge for your character.
whether it's a challenge or whether it helps you build up your story. Like if you are a scholar that's really obsessed with giant relics and giant artifacts and giant civilizations, you might want to play adventures that let you delve into ancient ruins or adventures that have a description that says something giant something, right? Like
Or
maybe
you owe an NPC something, so you will play all your adventures that have them.
they are related to the NPC. So you can build rapport with the NPC as well, which kind of makes sense. And you can tell the DM that, this is a concept for your character, and you would like to help to develop that concept, and you hope the DM plays along. And usually, I think a DM who's work,
Happy.
yeah, DMs who are work
Super happy.
are super happy because you're doing some of their work for them, and it's their way of rewarding you as well.
Yeah.
If you do your homework,
If as a player you are more active, you want to contribute to the story, I'm like, please.
yeah, the DM will be happy to work with you.
I'm happy to not talk to myself for 4 hours straight.
Yeah, exactly right.
Maybe 3 hours.
It's a bit tiring otherwise. Can you imagine just sitting there as if you are a computer RPG game server and you're just voicing all the NPCs and the players are just there to click on the button and just skip cutscene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
If
sad.
it's good cutscene, you can save your voice.
That is true.
But
Especially
it
since
can
I
be
have
fun,
yeah,
but not all the time, right?
especially since I have to voice act all the NPCs, right?
That's why I don't want to voice act. Voice acting is difficult.
Voice acting is difficult, as I have discovered. Being
It's like streaming. You need stamina to stream
You need
for
to-
long periods of time.
yeah, and you need to kind of stretch a
Yes,
little bit.
fresh food and
Yeah.
hydrate.
Skippers are
Right.
not so good.
And I go, so why are we fighting this NPC again? Then I'm just like,
Oh,
did
you
you
went?
not watch the 1 minute long cutscene before?
No, they went to the bathroom, or they went to the other table to harass their friends,
Or they're like, but I don't remember anything that goes on.
or they were playing.
Take notes, please.
Oh, they were totally playing with their phone and looking up the stat blocks for the next encounter.
So like, I mean, as a dungeon master, we are definitely aware that there are people that have trouble remembering things and taking notes. But I hope that as a player, you do your best to take notes. Maybe you have issues learning how to take notes. That's okay. It takes a bit of time to get into it. It's okay to clarify with Dungeon Master if you don't remember things, but do not ever assume that Dungeon Master is going to remember everything for you.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to
That's
ask
not
for.
fair to Dungeon Master.
But it's okay to ask for a recap.
Yeah.
And most dungeon masters will probably give a bit of a recap before the next scene begins, especially if they notice the players not paying
notes.
attention.
But if I have to recap an NPC's appearance 3 to 4 times because you weren't paying attention when
Well, then good luck to you.
everyone else
Yeah.
asked, I am going to be very annoyed.
Mhm.
Like, wait, what do you mean the NPC can't speak?
Ah, yes.
We've seen that.
We have seen that.
Yeah.
But that's also because the NPCs I write for the modules that I design tend to be a bit more complicated, I would say.
No, but you had mentioned someone's description like 3 to 4 times in a row, and while I understand that people do get distracted,
Or they make assumptions. I think that the biggest
Yeah.
challenge is that
no, they get distracted and they miss content and they fill that in their own assumptions.
Yes.
That's a problem.
so most of the time I've discovered that when players interact with NPCs, they tend to have this fixed idea of the NPC in their heads. And this may be because they have played the same module with another DM before. Because it's AL after all, and people do play different modules
Yeah.
regularly.
Yeah.
Or they may just have this weird idea in their heads that's been put there but for some reason or the other because of the kind of media they consume. Like if they watched a lot of movies and I said that this NPC is a spitting image of Samuel L. Jackson, they'll probably have this a bit of a preconceived idea of how the NPC is going to interact.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah. But that's also the thing, because if you as a DM, if you discover that players are having difficulty envisioning or visualizing the NPC, it's perfectly okay to draw correlations to pop culture elements that they're familiar with.
Absolutely. I guess it's a shortcut for them with mental image in there, especially if people have issues imagining based off like descriptions alone. Like some people have issues with that because it's not easy for them to have that running imagery in their head
And they need the
while
visualization.
still paying attention to everything else around them.
Yes, exactly. So draw any correlations or linkages to things that you and the players may mutually understand because of whether it's a movie, video game, comic book, whatever.
But yeah, I mean, take notes. Whichever way is the most efficient for you to understand doesn't matter. But I can assure you that if you don't actively take note, most of you are going to have issues catching up later on, especially if you're running this investigative.
Yeah, investigative modules are challenging. I
remember when we were running Dragon Heights?
Yeah, Dragon Heights.
And we ran it over like multiple sessions, and people were so confused they couldn't remember what happened.
We ran
in the
8
last
sessions. Yeah, 8 sessions, right? And there were some breaks in between the sessions, which I think
which were like months apart.
Also contributed to that. Yeah, so that was not helpful at all. But with Dragon Heist as it was run, I would say that was why we had Google Docs spreadsheet, all that stuff.
We didn't bother with that. We sat down, we pulled out the whiteboard,
and we had the whiteboard, which is great. And that is also why I love using Jamboard now, because if you're running games online, if you're running games with people from all around the world, as I normally do, Jamboard is an excellent, tool.
Way for your party to collaborate on notes.
Let them take their own notes. I love letting the players take their own notes, and if they make mistakes in their notes because they messed up in character, even better.
Fine.
Because it's going to add a layer of complication to the adventure, and that would just make it more interesting and more fun for them.
I think my issue with the is that when I take notes, I lose them.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because
you take physical notes, you use paper for that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just don't take notes, but I can still remember.
I have a habit of not taking notes myself, but that's also because I rely on a mostly photographic memory. Mostly, I say now
photographic my arse.
Because it's not that photographic anymore.
It's not. It was never photographic.
It was pretty good.
You just remembered stories that were interesting to you. And
I must
because the idea is interesting to you.
I must confess that I don't care about a lot of things.
We know.
Yeah. Anyway, fun stuff.
We have been talking for a really long time. Like,
Yeah,
super
yeah.
long.
It's wow, my goodness, it's about 2 hours and 35 minutes already. Time sure flies when you're having fun. I guess we are.
Are we having fun?
I guess. Are we not having fun? I mean, you have sneak attacked me with the slime quite a few times. That must be fun, right?
I'll think about it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Ah, I deflected it. And now I am armed with the dice.
Bonk.
What the hell? Slime attack. Okay, so back to MSQ. Not just yet. We still have a bit of things to wrap up in the studio.
Actually have stuff to work on.
Yes,
we're
and that's because
working on getting stuff for when we next run D&D in person.
yeah. In fact, we have a couple of exciting things to share. Now, since we're both here,
Putting together terrain sets.
yeah. So terrain sets are on the way, and we're
Yes.
going to be posting some pictures of those soon.
And printed and painted.
Yeah, printed and painted terrain sets, and those are going to be some of the things that players can use in when you come to the studio, and if you would like to run some games here or play some games here. Okay, the slime agrees. The slime is very happily agreeing there. We're also proud to announce that come this weekend, from 12, was it 12 and 13th?
I think it was 12th to 14th, right?
12. Let me just check real. Oh no, that's next weekend. Next weekend, 17th to 19th. 17th to 19th is gonna be. 17th to 19th is gonna be a bit of a introduction activity to D&D for new players, and we are working with Wizards of the Coast for that. So Wizards of the Coast is supporting this event to some degree, and we are going to be running some introduction games as well as learn to play events on that weekend, 17th to 19th. 11th to 13th is this coming weekend, and we are going to be doing a soft launch of our studio facilities. So if you are based in Singapore and if you are interested in checking out what we have in the studio, we are a private, exclusive D&D venue. And we will be, of course, running games for that.
And it's not just D&D.
Yeah, not just D&D. We have other stuff that we have planned as well.
Mm-hmm.
So more details on that as we go. But D&D is definitely one of the big things, right? If you're a fan of Magic the Gathering, yeah, kinda, I guess. And I guess Jazion is trying to act cute with the slime. Yes? No? No?
No?
No? Totally disagreeing. You're totally acting cute with the slime. So this is where we say, I can't believe Jazion is this cute, right? You see her vehemently disagreeing. All right, so I guess with that, we're coming to the end of the stream. So today was DM inspiration about fleshing out a character. On Wednesday, with any luck, during our casual media game stream, if the servers are okay, I might be streaming a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV. Fingers crossed. I don't know. If it doesn't quite work out, we'll pick something else to stream, I guess, and we'll let everyone know when that happens. Yeah. So there's no painting stream on Saturday. Is there? Are we gonna have a painting stream?
I guess we have a painting stream.
The slime says we'll have a painting stream.
We'll think about it.
Okay, the slime is thinking about it. So we might have a painting stream. We'll see. Yeah, and if the painting stream happens, yeah, let's do it. So let's see if that happens on on the coming Saturday. So that's this weekend. And of course, next Monday, more DM inspiration next Monday when we come back. So if you have any topics that you would like to chat with us about on DM inspiration, do let us know. Yeah, we'll be happy to go through that on air as well. That slime is so annoying. Should totally send it flying. Some animal attack send it flying away. Yes. Alright.
Okay. Anyway. Right.
Yeah, so that's about it for today. And
Thanks for tuning
Yeah.
in. Thanks for helping me sneak attack Crimson. I hope that you guys had fun with that.
yeah, so a bit more
Yeah.
interaction today.
A lot more interaction, I would say.
Yeah, she used fling
Yes, it did damage equals to its
to its toughness.
Power.
I thought fling was toughness.
Fling's power, right?
Can't remember.
Fling's power.
I don't play red enough.
I think it's power because I recall killing someone once by pumping a dragon's attack
Ah,
and then throwing it at them.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of makes sense. Well, one thing we all know is that Strixhaven is coming out sometime this week as well.
Mm.
Yeah, and while the books are not here in Singapore just yet,
Unfortunately.
yeah, rather bit of a shame there. Strixhaven is probably going to be available on D&D Beyond from Tuesday.
Yeah.
The same day that Ed Walker launches. So I'm officially
I mean, we're gonna be. I think we're definitely gonna be looking at the book and seeing what's
yeah.
interesting.
So we
about
might
it.
be
we
doing
might be running the content from that.
yeah. So the content from Strixhaven is probably going to be a thing for us. And I mean, everyone loves
And
you
there's a
know
lot of really fun
School Life
content
D&D,
that's-
right?
That's homebrew. That's not officially AL content that we're looking at.
But there is going to be an
Everybody.
official AL-ish kind of adventure for Strixhaven. So there is a alternate story path.
Yeah.
So that's going to be kind of interesting. Yeah. So everyone's going to be a freshman at Magic School.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being Harry Potter,
And
but
also, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that play out.
yeah,
in
for
person.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at some of the rules and previews, and I think that they were pretty cool. I'm definitely excited about that. If anyone wants to check it out, let us know. Especially if you are a member, you know that you have first rights to access our D&D Beyond campaigns at higher tiers.
Yeah, which is really useful.
So you might be able to get a first look at that too, because we have it all prepped for our first day release. Yeah.
And I mean, if not, and you're more interested in coming down to check out our cool studio and look at all this
Look at all the fun stuff.
random stuff.
Yeah. Oh, are you reaching for the dinosaur? Oh, that's a dinosaur. Dinosaur. Roar.
Wait, wrong.
Wrong dinosaur. That doesn't roar.
It goes. Mm.
It goes moo. What?
Oh, what? Yeah, it's like this. It's wrong. That's right. Kind of.
I guess. Okay, I guess that definitely goes wrong. Allosaurus.
That's not an Allosaurus. It's a really badly scaled T-Rex.
Yeah.
It's in fact, I think a vintage T-Rex.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know my dinosaurs.
We know.
No one knows what sounds dinosaurs make. They could very well have gone moo. I suppose.
I mean, to be fair, they tried to recreate a lot of the dinosaur sounds based on the lungs and
Dinosaurs?
skeletal structure of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So like the parasaurs had that long flute-like structure.
I'm pretty sure dinosaurs don't go gow gow. Only Jazion goes gow gow.
I do not go gaga.
You totally do.
I do not.
When you were wearing Saber Lion, you did.
I did not.
Rawr.
Right.
Would you go gow gow if someone paid bids for that?
That can be negotiated.
That can be arranged.
Not arranged, negotiated.
Negotiated.
Yes.
500 bids for you to go gow gow.
Only 500 bits. Come on.
Only 500?
No way.
No?
No.
500 is too little. What if they made what if they paid bids for you to voice act? Would you voice act?
I could try. I'm not a very good voice actor by any means. It's not my thing.
It's not your thing.
I don't voice act much. And
You
then
don't
DMing.
voice act much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, come to think of it, you tend to paraphrase a bit.
I still such a I paraphrase. But when I'm being a dungeon master, I tend to focus more on the words that I'm picking and acting through body language, because I find that when I voice act too much, sometimes people get too distracted by the voice acting and don't pick up on the other important parts.
Right.
So I tend to stop and describe what I'm doing.
And
in terms of
describe
body language.
describe the body language,
Yes.
describe how they carry themselves, describe
they
their
can-
movements, right?
How? No. No.
How obviously wants you to
No.
voice act?
What she wanted to voice act?
I don't know. Maybe she's gonna tell you to go gal gal like Saber Lion.
No.
Anyway, that's all we have for you today. Thank you all for joining us. This is
I will think
Crimson,
about it, Carl. Next time.
and
Maybe if you ask me my painting stream.
yeah, on the painting stream.
Maybe.
I was about to wrap up, but that's actually a good thing. So now we all know, yeah. So ask Jazion on the painting stream if you want her to
And
voice
depending
act.
on how bored I am of painting, I would consider it.
Hmm.
You can ask me silly things about D&D as well.
Silly things
It's
about
always
you.
an AMA, right?
Yeah, it's always an AMA. Right?
Ask me about my character.
Ask you about your character. Tell them
Ask
about
me about my pet.
Vanya Chan sometime.
What? Everyone keep asking about Vanya.
I don't know. That's what they always ask. I think that Vanya's kind of the most iconic character for you.
That doesn't never really been embraced on private table.
Yes.
And
I mean,
that is also mainly played at private tables.
Yeah.
I don't bring her around to many tables because she is a bad influence.
I mean, it's just the same as me and Isekai protagonist, right?
I could make gag.
You could totally play Gag.
Yeah. Of course I could.
See, none of your voice acting.
Yeah.
Goblin noises?
Shush.
Yeah, totally goblin noises.
No.
Anyway, let's
Yeah.
let's wrap it up today.
Wrap it up today.
There we go.
There we go. Copy license.
There is someone. You sound like a Murloc.
Okay, yes.
All right. Yeah. That's quite enough from us, I think. All right, then.
And this is why I don't voice act, because it's way too easy to get carried away at the table and get distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that makes.
And some characters just should not be allowed to speak, like my goblin.
I guess not.
Yeah. Just not. Yeah.
The next thing we need is for you to also make kobold noises.
Well, what noises? Kobold will remember this. Kobold, you didn't hear about this.
Yeah. You gonna.
Kobold remember what it wants.
All right.
Kobold grandmother's a dragon. You watch out.
Good job.
I will fireball you once I take my class level.
Kobold taking class levels.
Kobolds take class levels. Kobolds always take class levels.
I guess. Just like that kobold in A Thousand Tiny Deaths, right?
Kobold says, adventurers bad. Kobold Union will hear complaints.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly better than the kobolds in World of Warcraft who go, "You don't take candle."
Don't take my candle. Ah, Kobold shine. Ah, oh, Kobold on fire. Help, help.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, it's almost 11. Let's wrap it up. Come on.
Alright, goodbye. Kobold
Alright.
going to put some out now.
Okay, so this is
Stop,
Crimson
drop it,
and
credits and goodbye.
okay, so there we go. Okay then. Good night.